Welcome back guys, we are back with another audiobook on, What If Bella Was a Teller Instead of a Swan? Before that, we are very close to reach milestone of 1,000 subscribers and more than 50% of our viewers haven't subscribed our channel yet, so do for more such stories. What if Bella wasn't a swan but a teller? She's Jax's twin sister. Charlie is her uncle. He JT's younger brother. When Bella was 16, Gemma and Clay sent her to live with Charlie to get her away from the problems with the Mayans. Bella and her cousin Bridget joined the R. Riders motorcycle club just before they turned 17. Basically the Rough Riders are the female sons. Bella's family in Charming doesn't know that she's a member or the life that she's been leading in Forks. She also has a secret that she's been kept from her family. Bella Pav. It all started when I was 16, but really it started way before then. I'm the daughter of JT and Gemma Teller, twin sister to Jax Teller and the Princess of Sancro. I was 9 when my dad wrecked his bike and he died in the hospital 2 days later. You see, while normally this wouldn't be a big deal, it is to my family. See, my dad and his 2 best friends started a motorcycle club in Charming, California, my hometown. There's a rival club in Oakland, the Mayans. After my dad died, his best friend, Clay Morrow Becca, me the president of the club, and less than a year later he married my mom. My mom is what's known as the queen of the club. Shortly after my 16th birthday, the club got into a war with the Mayans. Suddenly my mom and Clay were worried about my safety. They decided to send me to Forks, Washington to live with my uncle Charlie and my cousin Bridget. I guess they figured that I'd be safe there. When I started school in Forks, I met this guy, Edward Cullen. Real looker if you ask me. He's tall, he's got reddish brown hair and the most gorgeous eyes that you've ever seen. At the time, I wasn't interested in dating anyone. I was in love with someone else, a son, if you wanna know. I tried to brush off any advances that Edward threw at me. 8 months later, Bridget and I were at the beach when this girl, Alexis, but everyone calls her Lex, told us that she was the president of the Rough Riders. She told me that she'd heard of my dad and offered her condolences even though it had been 7 years since he died. I told her that I appreciated it. She told us that she wanted us to join her club. At first, Bridget and I were unsure, but then Lex told us that they were the female version of the Sons. After that I didn't hesitate joining. I knew that no matter who my father was, I could never be a son. It's just the way that it was. I was expected to become an old lady and that was it. Club first. It's always been that way. When we joined the club, Lex started giving us simple missions. Mostly stakeouts of the people that we were tracking down. Within 6 months, we'd earned the reputation of being the assassin club. People were hiring us to take people out. I became Lex's enforcer, once she saw my fighting skills and my shooting abilities. She said that she wasn't surprised since my family was Sancro. Just after my 17th birthday, Lex got information about the Italian mafia being in Seattle. She gave me the case and told me that it was all mine. Bridget became our tech guy. She's extremely gifted when it comes to computers. Bridget and I decided to get our GEDs since we were doing so much work for the club. We got a small apartment together and moved out of Charlie's. We knew that with our connection to the club that we couldn't keep staying with him. Bridget and I did a couple of stakeouts and found that Edward Cullen was somehow connected to the Italian mafia. We weren't sure how, but he was. When we took the information back to Lex, she was concerned. She'd heard things. She'd heard that they had strength that was beyond normal. It wasn't until I ended up in the hospital that she got even more concerned. That's where I am now. In the hospital. 2 fractured ribs, a broken rib, bruises, and I was raped. The rape was purely out of spite. They weren't even trying to hurt me. They were trying to hurt the club. I had just woken up from a nap when I noticed Lex sitting in the corner. What? Say it, I said. I think that you need to get out of Forks for a while. Lex said. Lex, I'm not going. I told her. How's long's it been, Bells? 6 months, a year. You need to get Clay on the idea that you've been hurt. We need the Sons on this, and I don't think that he's just going to willingly offer his help, let alone ask another charter to do the same. Lex said. I laid my head back and looked up at the ceiling. You're right. Clay's not going to willingly offer his help. I said, looking back up at her. So, I guess I'm going home, I said. After getting released from the hospital, I headed to my apartment and packed what I could. Bridget hated that I was leaving, but she also knew how important it was that I left. I wasn't taking my bike. It'd be too obvious. I had to take my car. I grabbed my coat, duffel, laptop bag and I got in my car and left. I knew that with going home, I was going to have to tell Mom, Clay and Jax what I had been up to for the last year, even though I didn't want to. I had a feeling that once I told them that they would look at me differently. There was nothing that I could do about it now. I was headed to Charming, my family, Samcro and the love of my life. Gemma Pav. I was working in the office. I had been thinking about Bella. Her and Jackson's 18th birthday was coming up and I really wanted her home for it. It had been a little over a year since she had been home last. I was finishing up a parts order when I saw a blue Mustang pull into the parking lot and park next to my caddy. I stepped out of the office. When the driver of the car stepped out, I couldn't believe my eyes. Bella, I said, walking toward her. She was wearing black leather pants, a white tank top and black boots. I recognized this outfit. Hell, I created the outfit. Hey Ma, she said. Something was different. I couldn't tell what it was, but something was definitely different. I hugged my daughter and I felt her tense. I pulled back. You okay? I asked her. Not exactly. I need to talk to you and Clay. She said. Well, come on. Let's go find him, I said and led her over to the clubhouse. When we walked in, the guys were sitting around drinking. Look who I found in the parking lot, I said. Bella Pav. Everyone turned and looked at me. Bells. My brother jumped up from his bar stool and ran over to me and hugged me, spinning me around. Hey Jax, I said when he put me down. He took a step back and looked at me. He raised an eyebrow at me. What's with the outfit? He asked me. I changed in Forks, I'm not the same kid that I was, I said, frowning a little. Clay walked over and hugged me as well. You home for good? He asked. For the foreseeable future at least, I told him and he nodded. You in trouble? He asked. I shook my head. No, but I need to talk to you and Mom alone, I said. He nodded and led me and Mom to the chapel. Once we were inside, he shut the door and we sat at the table. What's up, Pumpkin? You look kind of nervous, Clay said, using my childhood nickname. I reached in my back pocket and pulled my cigarettes and lighter out and lit one. I'm personally not in any trouble, but I do have a problem, I said, blowing out a puff of smoke. Okay, what's going on? He asked. Not long after I got to Forks, I met this guy. He was one of those that not only looked good, but he said all the right things. I tried to tell him that I wasn't interested in dating. He didn't seem to take the hint. About a month later, he started stalking me. It got to the point that Bridget and I ended up getting our GED and we got a job at a bar, so we moved to the outskirts of Forks. A few weeks ago, he found me. I was closing up the bar. He cornered me while he and his friends did. I said, taking a deep breath. Bells, what happened? Clay asked, and I could see that Mom was worried. He and his friends raped me, I said. Clay sat back in his chair and ran his hand over his face. He looked up and stared at me for a minute. Bells, I'm not promising anything, but you know that every one of those guys out there loves you and would die for you, Clay said. I know. I'm not expecting anything, but I needed to feel safe, I said. Clay nodded. I know. I'll bring it up in church, he said, standing up. Come on, let's get a drink, he said. We walked back into the bar room and to the bar. Prospect, beers all around, Clay said. The Prospect handed out beers and everyone went back to their conversations. I was sitting at the bar, alone, when suddenly I felt him. He leaned over. Bells, he said. I turned to look at him and gave him a small smile. Hi, I said, taking a drink of my beer. You couldn't have called and told me that you were coming home, he said. I couldn't, I said. This is bound to be bad. You couldn't, he said, standing up a little. I shook my head. Why? It's complicated, I told him. How's it complicated? All you had to do was pick up the phone, he said, causing everyone to look at us. Hap, please, I begged. Ma, Clay and Jax walked over and stared at us. What the hell is going on over here? Jax asked. We didn't say anything. We just stared at each other. It was the first time that we'd been in the same room together in 6 months. Okay, enough with the silent bullshit, Ma said. I quickly whipped my head around to face everyone. Well, tough shit, Ma. I just needed a moment with my old man, I said as I continued to glare at my mother. Old man? Since when? Jax asked, slightly confused. Jesus, Jax, we have been together since a year before you and Clay decided to ship me off for my own good. Hell, even Happy agreed with you, thinking that I'd be safe. Which, by the way, I wasn't. Since I arrived in that backwater town of Forks, I have been stalked by a family of weirdos, harassed, beaten and raped. I yelled. Excuse me. Hap yelled. He glared at me. We need to talk now, Hap said, grabbing my hand and leading me to his dorm. Once we were inside and Hap had closed the door, he turned and looked at me. Well, at least the glare is gone. He put his hands around my face and kissed me. He pulled back and rested his forehead against mine. Are you okay? He asked, softly. I shrugged my shoulders. I don't know. I have 2 fractured ribs and a broken one and some bruising. I told him. Let me see, he said. I pulled the top of my pants down a little and showed him the bruising on my hip. Then I lifted my shirt, showing him the bruising around my ribs. Finally I turned around and showed him the bruising on my back. Damn it, Bells, he said. I frowned. You should have called me. I know, I said. I walked into his arms and just let him hold me. It felt so good to have him just hold me. After what seemed like hours, we walked back out to the bar room to face the wrath of my mother and possibly my brother. Bella Pav. When we walked back into the bar room, everyone was staring at us. Hap looked down at me and nodded. I want you to go with Gemma to the hospital, okay? Hap said to me. I wanted to protest, but he shook his head. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, okay, I said. Okay, that's settled. You lot, church now, Clay said, ushering the guys into chapel. Hap leaned down and kissed my cheek. I stood beside my mom and watched Happy walk to the chapel. Come on, baby girl, let's go get you checked out, Ma said. I nodded. Yeah, okay, I said as Ma led me out of the clubhouse and helped me climb into her caddy. Happy Pav. I hated to leave Bella so soon after she got home, but I needed to sit down with Clay and the guys and figure out where to go from here. I needed to find out how Clay wanted to handle this. When we walked into the chapel, we all took our seats. Now, I'm not going to get into the fact that you inked my stepdaughter without even telling me that you were with her. At this point it doesn't really matter. What matters now is how we deal with the fucker that hurt her, Clay said, and I nodded. I say we bury him, Jax said. Nobody, and I mean nobody, hurts my sister. Agreed, I said. So how do we handle it? Tig asked. I say we reach out to Tacoma and see if they can track this guy and his friends down. Get the scoop on them, I said. That could work. Have Tacoma do the investigative work, Clay said. I nodded. It's definitely an idea. I'll reach out. Till then, Clay said, glaring at me. You keep her safe, Clay says to me. Promise, I said. Clay bangs his gavel, ending church. Everyone gets up and starts to leave. I don't move from my chair and neither does Clay. Close the door, Clay says as Jax is about to walk out. Jax nods, closing the door behind him. You should have told me, Clay says. I know, and we wanted to. Bells thought that if we did that you might change your mind about sending her away. She knew that you were sending her away for her protection. I tell him, quote, I'm starting to think now that we should have just sent her to Tacoma. Kozik would have kept an eye on her. You're right about that, Clay says. Clay lets out a sigh and rubs his hand across his face. What's done is done. There's no changing that. All we can do now is make sure that they pay for what they did to her. I nodded. Go on, get out of here. I'm sure you wanna go check on her. Thanks, I said, getting up from the Reaper table and making my way outside. When I get out to the parking lot, Jax is sitting on his bike. You ready to roll out? He asked me. Yeah, one thing first. We good? I asked him. As long as you protect my sister and don't hurt her, we're good, Jax says. Bella Pav. When we got to the hospital, Ma got me signed in and then she walked with me back to the room that they stuck me in. The nurse handed me a hospital gown and told me to put it on. She stepped outside while I changed. I looked at my mom and saw that she was frowning. You okay, Ma? I asked her. Yeah, I just hate that somebody hurt you, baby, that's all, Ma said. She helped me climb into the hospital bed. Are you happy? She asked me and I looked at her confused. With happy I mean. I nod. Yeah, Ma. I mean we've been apart for a year. But before I left, we were really happy. I told her. Ma nodded. We just gotta get you healed. Ma said with a small smile. Hey Ma, I said, causing her to cock her head at me. I want to say thanks for not completely ripping my head off about not telling you about me and Hap. Ma sat on the edge of the bed and puts her hand on my knee. Baby, I wouldn't be able to stop you even if I tried. You're just like your dad and Jax. When you set your mind to something, there's no stopping you. Damn straight, I said. After about 10 minutes a nurse came in to tell me that they were taking me for x-rays so that they could see how bad my ribs were. Happy Pav. When Jax and I got to the hospital, we went in search of Bella's room. When we found the room, the only person we found was Gemma. They took her for x-rays. Gemma said and we both nodded. Jax and I sat in the chairs on the other side of the room and waited for Bells to come back. We sat there for about 20 minutes before they came back. When they came in, Gemma helped Bells back into bed. The doctor should be in shortly. I'm gonna go see if I can rush your labs. The nurse told Bells walking out. Jax followed her. Gemma walked over and kissed the top of Bells' head. I'm gonna go call Clay and give him an update and get some coffee. Gemma said walking out, shutting the door behind her. I walked over and sat on the edge of the bed so that Bells could curl into my side. I missed you, Bells said. I missed you too. I wished that you would have called me when the stalking started. I would have been there. I told her. She entwined our fingers. I know, but I knew that you were handling shit down here and that you needed to be available for the club. She said. I kissed the top of her head. She was a true old lady putting the club first. I get that, and I appreciate it, but it's my job to protect you. I tell her. I'll be fine once my ribs heal and I can get in the ring and work off this tension. Bells said. I couldn't help but smile. That's my girl, I said. She tilted her head up and I leaned mine down and kissed her. We sat like this for about another 10 minutes when the doctor came in. What's the verdict, Doc? Bells asked. Bella Pav. Well, you have 2 fractured ribs and a broken one. There's not much that we can do for that. On another note, your mother mentioned that you were raped. Is that correct? The doctor asked. At the mention of rape, I felt Hap tense beside me. Yeah, that's right, I said. Okay, well, we're going to need to do a rape kit and Saint. Aren't you on a course of antibiotics as a precaution? Do you think that she needs the antibiotics? Hap asked. I knew that he was just as worried. It's hard to tell. Anytime we have a rape victim we always prescribe a course of antibiotics just in case. The doctor says and I nod. So I'll just send the nurse back in to do the rape kit while I get your prescription and discharge papers ready. Are you in any pain? Yes, I said. Okay, I'll also write you a prescription for some pain meds as well. The doctor said as he headed towards the door. Thank you, I said as the doctor walked out and closed the door behind him. I'm gonna go find Gemma. Hap said and I nodded. Jax Pav. I was still having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that somebody had hurt my sister. I was sitting in the waiting room waiting on everyone when I saw Hap walk in. How's she doing? I asked him. He sat down beside me and ran his hand over his face. Okay, considering. Doc's ordering a rape kit. He's putting her on antibiotics and pain meds. Hap said. Damn, why would someone want to hurt her? Bells is one of the sweetest girls around. I shook my head. I don't know, man. I promise you though, we're gonna make him pay. I told him. Bells was my sister and I would protect her with my life just like I would anyone, but now it was Hap's job to protect her. I shouldn't have let her go up there. I should have made sure that Tacoma was looking after her. Hap said. There's no way that you could have known that this was going to happen. I said. I know. You're right. I just feel like if she had been at Tacoma that this wouldn't have happened. Hap said. I put my hand on his shoulder. We're gonna make this right. I said and he nodded. Half an hour later, Ma and Bells came walking into the waiting room. We can go now, Bells said. Let's head back. Clay sent the prospects to get pizza and beer. Ma said and I nodded. I walked over to Bells and pulled her into a hug. I'm okay, Jackson, she said. I pulled back. I know. I don't want to think about if you weren't. I said. It's all healing at this point. Bells said. That and the fact that I really wanna kick the crap out of someone. she said with a smile. I couldn't help but laugh. That's the Bells that we all know and love, I said to my sister. Bella paused. When we got back to the clubhouse, Hap and I stayed outside for a minute before going in. You okay? He asked me. I am. I just wanted a minute with you before going in, I said, wrapping my arms around his waist. I leaned up and kissed him. Well, I'm all yours, he said, when I pulled back. I know that you're planning something, I said. And when you find him I want a shot. Hap raised an eyebrow at me. Bells, I love the fact that you're just as crazy as I am, but I'm not letting him back near you, Hap said. Hap, he hurt me. He and his backwater family hurt me. Don't you think that I deserve that closure? I asked him. She's right, you know. Hap and it earned and saw Clay leaning against the building. Hap glared at him. Hear me out. You taught Bells to fight, you taught her how to shoot. In a crazy way, you've turned her into the female you. If it was any of us, we would serve our own justice, and she knows that. She just wants the chance to find her own closure, Clay said. Hap looked down at me. I'll think about it, Hap said. I need a drink, he said, walking into the clubhouse. I walked over and hugged Clay. Thanks, I said. You're welcome, Pumpkin. This is hurting him as much as it is you. I can see it in his eyes. I know. I'm just ready for it to go away, I said to Clay. Give it time. Does he know? Clay asked me. I looked at him confused. About the time you spent with Alexis. How did you? I asked. She called when she'd heard that you left Forks, Clay said. I haven't told him yet. Alexis wants to handle this internally, just as I'm sure you do, I said. I do. Alexis and her crew will be here in 2 days. You need to tell him, Clay said. I will. Bella paused. Later that night, Hap was playing darts with Chibs. He was about 4 sheets to the wind. I took this as an opportunity to call Lex and check in. I grabbed a beer from the bar and walked outside. I lit a cigarette before I called her. Hello, she said when she answered her phone. Hey, I said. What the fuck? I've been worried, Alexis said. I know. I'm sorry. I got here and had to handle things. Did you find anything out? I asked her. Yeah, Bridget's been watching the house with LaPush. They pretty much haven't left the house, she said. Okay, so where does that leave us? I asked. I'm headed to you to talk to Clay and see if they'll join us. Misty's bringing the van with your bike. Is your coot in the car? She said. Yeah, I have it with me. I haven't told Hap yet, but I will before you get here. Which will be when? Late tomorrow night. We're stopping in Nevada to rest early morning, Lex said. All right. And you're bringing the files? I asked. Yep, they're in the van. Good. I'll see you tomorrow then, I said and hung up. I closed my phone and stuck it in my pocket. What the hell is going on? I turned and saw Hap glaring at me. I can explain, I said. He walked over with his arms crossed and stood in front of me. You better, he said. I'm a member of the Rough Riders, I said. His glare got darker. A few weeks after I got to Forks, this girl approached me and said that she knew Clay. She said that she was the president of the Rough Riders. Basically, they're the female version of the Sons. She said that they had been keeping an eye on this strange guy and his friends that just randomly popped up in Washington. She asked me if I'd be willing to help. I agreed, because I was pissed about being away from you and hoped that it would help me channel some of my anger, I said, and his glare softened. It started off as a covert mission. I posed as a high school student and got the youngest son to notice me, I said, and he nodded. Eventually, I found out that I was good at it. I'm basically you, if you think about it. Anyway, Lex got word that people were going missing in Seattle, so she sent me up there to check it out. It was all fine and dandy. And then he saw me. He blew my cover. That's when they cornered me and raped me. I told Hap. Bells, are you seriously telling me you joined Rough Riders and became their enforcer? He asked me. The only thing that I could do was nod. He ran his hand over his face. I don't like this, he said. I know. Anyway, they're on their way here. Lex is hoping that he can get Samcro and SAMTAC to join us and take them down. Babe, they're strong. Like ridiculously strong, I said. Hap grabbed my legs and pulled me to the edge of the table. I wrapped my arms around his waist. Hell, you know I can't stay mad at you. Especially for something that I do myself, he said. Really? I asked. Yeah, and besides it's kinda hot. he said, leaning down to kiss me. My big bad biker chick. He said. Dude, that's my sister. I turned and saw Jax leaning against the door. How long have you been there? I asked him. Long enough. Clay figured you were talking to him. Yes, I know. And I should kick your ass for it. He said, get your damn coot and get to the table. He wants to know everything. Jax said, and I nodded. I walked over to my car and grabbed my coot and my duffel out of the back seat. I walked into the clubhouse and to Hap's room. I sat my bag on the bed and put my coot on. I reached into my duffel and grabbed the file folder that I had in there. I ched into the side pocket of my bag and grabbed my Glock. I never went anywhere without it. I walked back out to the bar room and suddenly my mother was glaring at me. Tell me you didn't, she asked me. Not now, Ma, I said. Then I turned to Clay. You ready? I asked him. After you, he said, pointing to the chapel. I walked into the room. I sat the file folder on the table as Clay walked around me and sat at the head of the table. I lit a cigarette before sitting down and sliding the folder to him. Everything you need is in that folder. I talked to Lex. We need you in Tacoma with us on this, I said as Clay opened the folder. Basically, I'm the enforcer for Rough Riders, I said, going into the same explanation that I had given Hap. Clay, I don't know what it is, but these guys are super strong. And with my ribs the way they are at the moment, I need help. I tell him. He sits back and runs his hand over his face. You know, I should be furious about the deception of your visit. I'll put it to a vote and call Tacoma with the same request. He said, and I nodded. You know your mom's not gonna like this. He said. I finished my cigarette and put it out. I know, I said. When Clay and I walked out of the chapel, I found Hap and Jax standing with Ma. Have you lost your mind? Ma asked me, looking at my coot. Look, Ma, I'm tired, in pain, and really don't feel like retelling the last year of my life. Clay can answer any questions that you have. If you still have questions tomorrow, we can talk. I told my mom and she nodded. I'm ready to go home. I have to wrap my ribs in the morning and get back to training, I said. I turned to Hap. Let's go home, I said. Hap nodded and led me out of the clubhouse. I told him that I'd meet him at the apartment that we'd gotten just before I left for Forks. I needed to stop and get smokes. He nodded. I watched him walk over to his bike and pull out of the parking lot before I headed to my car. When I got in my car, I called Bridget on my drive. She answered on the first ring. Hey chick, you good? She asked me. Fractured a couple ribs, broke one and got some bruises. All live. How's the steak out? I said. Boring as shit. There's a couple new players. I'll email you what I have. Bridget said. Sounds good. Lex will be here tomorrow night. I told her. How'd your family take the news? She asked me. Not too good, I said, pulling into the gas station. Hang on, I said. I walked in and told the cashier what kind of smokes I needed and paid for them. When I got back in my car, I continued my conversation. Old man was pissed at first. Then he realized that I'm basically Lex's enforcer. Then he had this proud look on his face. Well, from what you've told me about him, he should be proud. You're pretty badass, she said. Aw, thanks, I said, pulling into the apartment complex a few minutes later. Email me what you have. I'm ready to finish this, I said, hanging up. When I walked into the apartment, Hap was sitting on the couch with a beer. I took my coot off and hung it up by the door next to his. I'd grabbed my computer bag out of my car and brought it in with me. I sat it on the kitchen table. I grabbed a beer and sat beside him on the couch. Go ahead, say it, I said. Bells, I love you, you know I do, but do you really think that jumping right back in is the best decision? Hap asked me. Hap, I love you too. This isn't the worst injury that I've had in the last year. This is mild compared to that. Like I told Clay, there's something about these guys. They're stronger than I've ever seen, I told him. I turned and looked at him. I need your help on this, I told him. I'll do what I can, he said. Bella Pav. The next morning, I'm woken up by the sound of my phone ringing. I reach over to the bedside table and grab it. I answer it without opening my eyes. This better be important, I said. Bells, we got a problem, I heard Bridget say. I sit up. What kind of problem? I asked. LaPush has been helping me with the stakeout. Well, this morning Michelle took over while I went on a coffee run. I wasn't gone 5 minutes. When I got back, Sam and Jacob were pulling me away. They got her. Completely slaughtered her. Bridget said. Fuck. I yelled, causing Hap to wake up and sit straight up. What happened? Hap asked. I got out of bed and went to the living room pulling out my laptop. Are you safe now? I asked her. I'm working on it. Sam's putting me in one of their safe houses. Bridget said. No. Go to the Tacoma clubhouse. I'll have Clay call and tell them to expect you. I told her. All right. Bridget said and hung up. I looked for Clay's number and called him. Yeah, he said when he answered half asleep. I need a favor. I said. Bells. What's wrong? He asked me. I need you to call Tacoma and ask them to provide a safe haven for a member of Rough Riders. I told him, turning my computer on. While I waited for it to power up, I went to the kitchen and started a pot of coffee. It was going to be a long day. What happened? Clay asked me. We had one of our members doing a stakeout on the house. Well, her relief this morning was watching the house while she went on a coffee run. Anyway, when Bridget got back she found Michelle completely slaughtered. I tell Clay. I'll make the call. Where's Alexis? He asked. Should be in Nevada. I say. All right. Tell Hap I'm calling church at 11. I want you there too. Clay said. Will do. I said and hung up. When I turned around, Hap was standing there staring at me. I walked over and kissed him. Sorry I woke you up. I said. It's okay. What happened? He asked me. We walked over to the table so that I could pull up the email from Bridget. One of the girls was slaughtered this morning. I tell him. You okay? He asked. I nod. Yeah, she was one of the new girls, so I didn't know her that well. Clay's trying to get Tacoma to provide safe haven for Bridget. I gotta get her out of Forks until we figure out a plan. Lex had left Bridget and Michelle there so that they could watch each other's backs, plus they had LaPush to help them if things got bad. Turns out it was a bad call. I said, pulling up my email and looking for the one from Bridget. When I pulled it up, Hap looked over my shoulder. Who's that? He asked. Her name's Jane. She's one of the higher-ups in an Italian mafia. We have reason to believe that this guy and his friends are part of it. I tell him. So what's the plan? Not sure yet. I said. Clay called church at 11. We should get moving. I said. Edward Pav. Meanwhile back in Forks, I was washing up, when I heard footsteps. I turned around and saw Jane and Alex standing there. Did you find her? Jane asked me. Not yet. I'm working on it though. I said, picking up a towel and drying my hands. Jane stepped closer to me. She ran a finger along my cheek. Edward, didn't I tell you that I wanted her? Jane asked me. You did, and I'm trying to find her. I didn't think that she would leave Forks. I just thought that she would hide. I said. The next thing I know she scratches my face deep with her long nails. You need to find her like now. Jane said. Bella Pav. After getting dressed, Hap and I headed to the clubhouse. When we walked in, everyone was waiting. Clay ushered everyone into the chapel. Tig offered me his seat next to Clay. All right, church is a little different today. Most of you don't know this, but I'm sure that you've noticed Bella's coot. She's a member of the Rough Riders. The guy that raped her is believed to be part of the Italian mafia. Bells, you wanna take it? Clay said. I had my laptop set up along with the file folder that I'd given Clay last night. All right, so, the guy's name is Edward Cullen. He's believed to be low in the mafia. I said. I passed a picture of Edward around. My mission was to pose as a high school student and get close to him. See if I could get close enough to him and his friends to get information. They're posing as a family. I told them. I passed another picture around. This is Alice Cullen. She's believed to be not only their tech, but she also handles their intel. She's married to Jasper. I said, passing a third picture around. Jasper is their interrogator. He's powerful. I said. I turned my laptop around. This is Jane. She's one of the higher-ups. The night that Edward and I got into it and he raped me. I saw her standing on a rooftop. I have reason to believe that she's in town recruiting. I said and everyone nodded. This morning, we had two members doing a stakeout on their house. They had the backup of LaPush if they needed it. My right hand, Bridget, had gone for a coffee run. She wasn't gone 5 minutes. When she got back, she found that Michelle had been slaughtered. I said and everyone started shaking their heads. She's currently en route to Tacoma for safe haven till the rest of us can get back up there. I said. Alright, thanks. Step out. Clay said, and I nodded. I grabbed my laptop and stepped out to the bar. I sat at the bar and one of the prospects brought me a cup of coffee. I was sitting there looking through the pictures on my lap. Top went out of the corner of eye. I saw Ma standing there. Why? She asked me. She walked over and sat beside me. Because I was angry and fighting all the time. Lex needed help. I wasn't worried and neither should you. I can hold my own. Ma, you know that. I said, and she nodded. I just don't like seeing you hurt. She said. I know. I just couldn't tell you everything until I'd talked to Lex. But she had already talked to Clay and decided that she was coming here, so I didn't have a choice but to tell everyone. I said. Ma nodded. My phone started vibrating on the bar. I picked it up and saw that it was Kozik calling me. I answered it. Yeah, I said, lighting a cigarette. Hey, I wanted to let you know that Bridget's here. He said. I had introduced him to Bridget when we had gone to a party. One of the rare times that I'd been able to see Hap. Hap just hadn't known the full story of how we knew each other and what we did. Okay, good. Let me talk to her. I said. I heard him mumble something and then I heard Bridget's voice. Hello. She said. Hey, you're safe? I asked. Yeah. Smashed the phone before I ever got out of Forks. Bridget said. Okay, good. I'm looking at the photos. I told her. How's it look? She asked. I looked at the photo of the warehouse where Bridget and I believed that Jane was hiding out. It looks like there might be a way in from the back. We'd need blueprints though. I said. I'll see what I can find. She said. Let me know. I said and hung up. I turned back to Ma and she had a shocked look on her face. Neither of us said anything. Just then we heard the chapel doors open. Ma and I turned around to look. We saw the guys walking toward us. Clay and Jax stopped in front of us, Hap coming to my side. We're in, Clay said. I nodded. Good. What about Tacoma? I asked. Clay nodded. Awesome. That gives us the manpower. Everyone needs to be training. These guys are incredibly strong. I turned and wrote down the address to the warehouse. I turned back to Clay and handed him the piece of paper. I need blueprints for this address. Clay held the paper up. Juice. Clay yelled and Juice appeared by his side. Clay handed him the paper. Blueprints, ASAP. Clay said. You got it. Juice said, running off. I closed my computer and headed towards Hap's room. I needed to wrap my ribs and train. I was standing in the bathroom wrapping my ribs when I noticed Hap standing in the doorway. You need help? He asked. Need? No. Would I like some help? Yes. I said. Hap walked over and helped me wrap them. How you doing with everything? I asked him. I'm good. I just worry about you. He said. I know. I'm okay though. Just gotta get back to training. I need to be ready for when we get up there. I said. When's that gonna be? Hap asked. I don't know. I gotta talk to Lex when she gets here. I'll know more after that. I said and he nodded. Once he finished wrapping my ribs, I was ready to train. I headed out to the ring. When I got outside, I saw Half Sack sitting on the picnic table. Clay thought that you could use somebody to train with. Half Sack said. I smiled at him. Thanks. I said, as I finished wrapping my hands. Just so you know, I don't train with gloves. Can't use them in the real world, why train with them? I told him. Makes sense. He said, climbing into the ring. Jack's paw. Clay and I walked outside and saw Belle's in the ring with Half Sack training. Think she's still good? I asked him. Guess we're about to find out. Clay said and I nodded. We walked over and sat on the table. It didn't take long until we started to see that Belle's was pretty badass. She was holding her own. A few minutes later, Hap walked over and joined us. You know, I taught her everything that she knows. Hap said, right as Belle's knocked Sack on his ass. She looked up at us and smiled. Keep telling yourself that, old man. She said. That's badass. I said, getting up and started to head over to the garage. Belle's climbed out of the ring and walked over to us. Don't underestimate me. I could knock you on your ass, Jackson. I glared at her. Don't first name me Isabella. I said. She glared. Asshole. She said. Bitch. I said. Everyone was staring at us. We started laughing. I should shower and check in with everyone. She said, walking into the clubhouse, Hap following her. Bella paused. Walking into Hap's room, I heard the door close. I turned around and I was staring into Hap's eyes. What? I said. He walked closer to me, putting his hands on my hips and pulling me to him. You know, that was kinda hot out there. He said. I smiled at him. I could knock you on your ass too. I said. I'd like to see you try. He said, smirking at me. Edward Pav. Jane was harassing me about finding Bella. I knew that he was one person in Forks that might know where I could find her. I headed over to Charlie's house. I knocked on the door. Edward, what can I do for you? Charlie asked me. Hi, Chief Swan, I was wondering if Bella was here. I said. No. She and Bridget got an apartment a while back. Bridget called last night and said that they were taking a trip to see Bella's family. Charlie said. Where would that be? I really need to talk to her. I said, hoping that I could get the information that I really needed. Charming, California. Tell her Morrow Auto. Charlie said, walking inside and shutting the door in my face. Charming. Never heard of it. As I got into my car, I called Alice. Did you find her? She asked me when she answered. No, but I got a lead. I'm heading California. Get me all the information you can about Teller Morrow Auto in Charming. I told her. You got it. I'll get back to you. She said and hung up. Charming. Jasper asked. Yeah, we got a long drive. I said. Bella Pav. After a heated round with Hap and a shower, I found myself sitting at the bar calling Lex. Yeah, she said. Hey, just checking in. I said. Bells, hey, we're good. We should be there in about 2 hours. Have you heard from Bridget? I can't get her. Lex said. Yeah, I'll explain everything when you get here, but she's fine. I said. What happened? She asked. They slaughtered Michelle. I had Bridget go to Tacoma. I said. I heard Lex sigh. Okay, we're leaving now, she said and hung up. I closed my phone and sat it on the bar next to my laptop. I was looking at the pictures again, when I noticed something. I picked up my phone and called Bridget. Hey, what's up? She asked me. Hey, so I'm looking at the photos again. There's another person on the roof. I tell her. I only saw Jane. Bridget said. Look at it again. Zoom in on the rooftop. There's a guy up there with her. I said. I'll take a look at it. When's Lex getting there? Bridget said. 2 hours. Then we'll meet with Clay and Jax. I said. All right. Let me know when you have a plan. Absolutely. I said and hung up. What's that? I turned and looked to see Clay standing beside me. It's the warehouse that we were investigating. I said. He nodded. Why don't you set up in the chapel? That way you don't have keep moving your stuff. Clay said. Really? He nodded. That would be great. I said, grabbing my stuff and moving it to the chapel. Sitting it on the Reaper table. Thanks. I said, turning back to Clay. He smiles at me. Your dad would be proud of you, you know. Clay says. You think so? I asked and he nodded. Yeah, I remember when you were born. He held you in the hospital, Clay said, leaning against the doorframe. He looked down at you and he said, she's meant for greatness. Then he looked up at me and he told me that you were going to great things. I never knew that. I said. How would you? You and Jax were just kids, it's something that you wouldn't have understood. Clay said. I smiled at him. Thanks. I said. He nodded and walked out. An hour and a half later, I walked outside and sat on the picnic table to wait for Lex. They would be riding up any second. You nervous? I looked over and saw Hap standing beside me. I guess I zoned out and didn't notice him walk outside. A little. I'm just ready for all of this to be over. I said. What happens when it is? He asked me. I don't know, Hap. I said. Do you want to go back? He asked me. Yes and no. I said. I knew that admitting this was going to cause a fight, but it was the truth. Yes and no. He asked. I nodded. Bells. You going to Forks wasn't supposed to be a permanent thing. I know. It's hard to explain, but I'm good at what I do. Just like you are. I said, lighting a cigarette. He walked over and stood in front of me. He pulled me to the edge of the table. Babe, I know that you're good at what you do. I just want you home for good. He said. I know, and I want that too, but at the same time I have a job to do. What if you transfer back to Tacoma? I said. He glared at me. Then we heard the bikes. We'll talk about this later. He said and I nodded. I watched as the bikes pulled in and parked. I walked over to Lex as she was getting off her bike. I hugged her. You made good time. I told her. We did. So what happened with Bridget and Michelle? She asked me. I'm not 100% sure, B. Bridget called me and said that she went for a coffee run and when she got back Sam and Jacob were pulling her away from the scene. Sam was going to put her in one of their safe houses, but I thought it'd be best to get her out of Forks. I tell Lex. She nods. Good call. She said. Let's head in. Clay's waiting for us. I said. Bella pav. When Lex and I walked into the clubhouse, all the guys were standing at the bar. Ma was on one side of Clay and Jax was on the other. Clay, this is Lex. Lex, this is Clay. I started pointing around to all of the guys. That's my brother Jax, Juice, Tig, Bobby, Chibs, Hap, Piney and Opie. I said, introducing the guys. It's nice to meet you all. Bells has said nothing but nice things about all of you. Lex said. It's nice to finally put a name to the face. Clay said. Lex nodded. Right then, this way. He said, leading Lex to the chapel. Jax and I followed. When we walked into the chapel, Clay and Jax took their seats and Lex sat next to Clay, and me beside her. All right, give me the rundown. Lex said. I slid my laptop over and placed it in front of her. I pulled up the picture of Jane. This Jane. Through what Bridget and I have found, she's one of the higher-ups. Her right hand is Alec. We haven't been able to get facial recognition, I said, going to the next picture which was of the warehouse. But we believe that that was who was on the rooftop with Jane. I said. Lex looked at me and smiled. Good work. She turned to Clay. And we have Samcro and Tacoma with us. Clay nodded. Whatever you need. Clay said. Good. Can you give me and Bells a moment? She asked. Clay nodded. He and Jax stood up and walked out. I sat back in my chair and looked at Lex. What's up? You look worried. I said. Lex pav. I let out a sigh, standing up from my chair and walking to the window. I need a new VP and I have a side job for you. I said. What happened? Bells asked me. Lexi has been feeding information to Jane. I said. I turned and looked at Bells. You want me to take her out? She asked me and I nodded. Okay, what's her location? She's still in Nevada. I said. Bells nodded. Do you need backup? I asked. I'll probably take Hap with me if Clay doesn't need him, while you, Clay and Jax get everything ready to head to meet with Tacoma. Bells said. Sounds good. I said. Bells smiled at me. When this is done, I want you as my VP. I told her. Bells nodded. Can I think about it? She asked me. Sure. Think about it, talk to Hap about it. I said. Thanks. Bells said, walking out of the room. Bella pav. When I walked out of the chapel, I made a beeline for Hap's room. When I walked in, I walked to the closet and grabbed my duffel. I started digging through it, looking for my outfit. I pulled out my black leather pants, my black long-sleeve shirt, my leather jacket and my black boots. I was about to change when I looked up and saw Hap. Going somewhere? He asked me. Yeah, I have to go to Nevada tonight. I said. He nodded. Need backup? He asked me. I smiled at him. I would. Clay won't need you. He shook his head. Nope. He's getting things ready with Lex and Jax. Hap said. I nodded. Okay. I just have to change. I said. I grabbed my clothes and walked into the bathroom. I quickly changed. When I walked out of the bathroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and put my boots on. What's the job? He asked. Lex's VP. She's been feeding information to Jane. I said. Hap nodded. I put my leather jacket on and pulled my hair into a ponytail. You ready? I asked him and he nodded. All right, let's go. I said. We headed out into the bar room, and Lex stopped me. You know the drill. Lex said. I nodded. I know. You want a finger or a toe this time? I asked. Lex looked like she was thinking for a minute. I think a toe sounds good this time. Lex said. You got it. I said, walking past her with Hap following me. I walked over to my car and opened my trunk. I opened the hidden compartment in my trunk and grabbed the silencer for my pistol. Wow, you're prepared, Hap said. I smirked at him. Always. I said, shutting my trunk and walking over to my driver's door. We're taking your cage? Hap asked me. Yeah, less suspicious that way, I said. Hap nodded and climbed into the passenger's seat. I got into the driver's side and pulled out of the lot. After about 10 minutes of being on the road, I figured now would be a good time for Hap and I to talk about things. So have you thought any more about our conversation earlier? I asked him. You really want to go back? He asked. Yeah, I do. Lex has asked me to go back as her VP. I said. I glanced over at Hap and he nodded. I briefly talked to Clay. I asked him about a transfer back to Tacoma. Hap said, and I raised an eyebrow. He said that he'd hate to lose me but that he understands that we're trying to work out a compromise. That's one way to look at it. I said. If this is what you really want to do, then I'll go back to Tacoma. I just don't want to be away from you anymore. Hap said. I stopped at a red light. I looked at Hap. You mean it? You'll go back with me? I asked him. He nodded. You don't know how much that means to me. I told him, leaning over my center console and kissing him. I know. He said. Jack's paw. Clay and I were helping Lex get things organized and ready for the trip up to Tacoma. She W. As in the chapel looking at the intel when I stopped in the doorway. She's good at what she does. Lex said. I believe it. Hap taught her most of what she knows. I said. Lex turned around and leaned against the table. She speaks highly of you. Lex said. This surprised me. Don't get me wrong, Bells and I had always gotten along but she was always more of a free spirit. She hated not telling you what she was up to in Forks. She's my sister, I worry about her. I said. That's understandable. I've asked her to be my VP. Lex said, waiting for me to say something. You asking for her to get killed? I may not know a lot about your club, but I know what it's like to wear that VP tab. I know the weight that it holds. I said. Lex looked over at me and smirked. Bells said that you're a pretty good fighter. She said. I smirked back. I can hold my own. I said. I walked closer to her. What about you? She leaned closer to me. I'm better in the bedroom than I am in a fight, but I can hold my own. She said. She leaned back. I need a drink, she said, walking around me out to the bar room. Bella Pav. I pulled into the driveway of the address that Lex gave me. Hap and I got out of the car and I walked to my trunk. I opened it and grabbed the duffel bag that was waiting for me. I closed the trunk back. I looked at Hap. I need you to take the back side of the house. I don't think that she'll run but just in case. I said. He nodded. Be careful. He said. Always. I said. Hap took off to the back side of the house. I made my way up the porch. I opened the front door and walked inside. I walked into the living room and saw Lexi sitting there. She looked up at me. I wondered when Lex would send you. Lexi said. Why'd you do it? I asked. Money. Jane offered me money and a place in her ranks if I did it. She said. I sat the bag down in the doorway and walked into the living room and sat on the couch opposite of her. I pulled my gun out of the back of my pants. You know that she would have killed you in the end. I said. How pissed is Lex? I think that she's more hurt than anything. She feels betrayed. I said and Lexi nodded. How do you want to do this? I asked her. We can go out back. She said and I nodded. We stood up and headed towards the back door. I grabbed the duffel on the way out. We walked past Hap and he started following us. When we got to the edge of the woods, we stopped. She took off her coat and handed it to me. I passed it back to Hap. Tell Lex I'm sorry, okay? She said and I nodded. I had my pistol in my hand. You know this one's hard for me, right? I said to Lexi. I know. But you'll do it because your president asked you and you love your club. Lexi told me, hugging me one last time. Stand by Lex and protect her. She looks to you. I nodded. She backed away from me. Okay, I'm ready. She said. Lexi, the club has decided that because of your betrayal that your life is over. I said. It's okay, Bells. Just breathe. She said. I pulled the trigger. I stood there and watched her fall to the ground. I let out the breath that I didn't realize that I was holding. A few seconds later, I felt Hap's hand on my shoulder. You okay? He asked me. I nodded. Yeah, let's just get this done. I said. I grabbed my bag from him and reached inside for my pliers and the small box. I got on the ground taking one of her boots and pulling her sock off. I had my black gloves on, so I grabbed my pliers and I cut her big toe off, sticking it in the small box. I handed Hap the box and he stuck it in my bag. 45 minutes later, Hap and I are walking back to my car. I opened the trunk and stuck the bag in my trunk. I tossed her coat in as well. I closed my trunk and looked at Hap. Ready? I asked and he nodded. We climbed back in my car and headed back to Charming. Gemma Pav. I was sitting at a table drinking a glass of whiskey, when Lex walked up and sat across from me. You must be Gemma. She said. I am. I said, sitting my glass on the table. Bells says that you're the one that taught her how to take care of everyone. I nodded. I did. Does she talk about everyone here a lot? I asked. The girl nodded. She does. When I first recruited her, I was hesitant. I wasn't sure if she had what it took, but then she started telling me about everything that everyone here had taught her. And the next thing I knew, she'd gained us the reputation of being the assassin club. She did that. I asked and she nodded. Gemma, she's good. She takes care of everyone and she protects her club all at the same time. She said. Her father was like that. I said, thinking about how loyal JT was. I've heard a lot about him. Not just through Bells but other clubs throughout the years. Our club is close with Indian Hills. She said. If they were close with Indian Hills, then that meant that she knew Jury. I just nodded at her. I just worry about her getting hurt. I said. I get that. My mom worries too. But she's good at what she does. The only reason that she got hurt so bad was because her cover got blown. Lex said, before she stood up. Lex. I said, causing her to turn around. Thanks. Bella paused. When happened I got back to the clubhouse. I grabbed Lexi's coat in the small box, shutting my trunk. I turned around and Hap was standing right in front of me. He was staring at me. I'm okay, Hap. I said. You know, I've been doing this a long time. It's one thing when it's a stranger, it's a whole other when it's a member that betrayed the club. He said. I have to get this to Lex. I said, walking around him. When I walked into the clubhouse everyone was staring at me. I walked over to Lex. It's done. I said, handing her Lexi's coat in the small box. Lex nodded at me. I'm going to shower and then I'll be back. I said, turning and heading toward Hap's room. When I stepped out of the shower, I wrapped a towel around me. Lexi had been my friend. She had been my sponsor when I first joined the club. I knew that Lex felt betrayed by Lexi, but for me it was more than that. I felt like she betrayed that bond that we had throughout the whole club. We were a sisterhood. When I walked out of the bathroom, Hap was sitting on the bed. Hap, I told you I'm fine. I said. I know, but you seemed kind of off. He said. I reconsidering going back. I said. Hap raised an eyebrow at me. I'm not quitting the club. I'm just thinking about telling Lex that I need a break. I think I'm gonna tell her that if she needs me for a job that I'll be there, but I need a break from Forks. I said. That what you really want? He asked me. Yeah, it is. I said. Then that's what we'll do. Hap said, grabbing my hand and pulling me to him. I love you, Hap. I love you too, Bells. Jack's paw. Clay had the guys loading up. I looked over to the picnic table in front of the clubhouse and saw Bells sitting there smoking. I walked over to her and sat beside her lighting my own cigarette. Hey, I said. Hey, she said. Is that the guy? I asked her. She was looking at two guys standing next to a car. She nodded. Yeah, and the other guy was one of his friends that was there that night. She said. I nodded. You know that Hap's gonna have fun torturing these guys, right? Bells laughed a little. Yeah, I know. The night I got back, he was talking in his sleep about all the different ways that he was going to torture them. She told me. How you dealing with all this? I asked her. She shrugged. Okay, I guess. Ready for it to be done with. Ready to get to Bridget and finish organizing my plan to take these guys down. She said. I nodded. Just remember we got your back. I told her. She turned and looked at me for the first time since I'd sat down. Thanks, Jax. Let's ride. We heard Clay yell. Bella paw. I took off towards Hap's bike. I was taking my car so that Bridget could ride with me from SAMTAC to Forks. When I got to his bike, he smiled at me. Ride safe. I said. You too. He said. I leaned in and kissed him before heading to my car. Rough Riders were following Samcro to SAMTAC. Then when we headed to Forks, Samcro and SAMTAC would follow us. Samcro pulled out of the parking lot, then me. Then the Rough Riders bikes, then Misty in the van. It was a long drive to SAMTAC, but it would give me the chance to clear my head before getting there. Once we got on the highway, I decided that it would be the perfect time to call Bridget. I grabbed my phone and dialed her number. She answered on the second ring. Girl, I was starting to get worried. She said. Sorry, been a little crazy. I said. It's all good. I expected Lexi to call and check up on me. She said. Shit. B, there's a reason for that. I said. What happened? She asked. Lexi betrayed the club. I told her. You okay? She asked me. It was tough. I won't lie. Hap made me realize that it's easier when it's a stranger, but when it's a member of your club that the shit can rip you apart. I told her. He's right. Lex's job is tough because she's the prez. Your job's tough because you're the club hitman hit woman, so to speak. I couldn't help but laugh at that. You're right. Anyway, the reason for my call. Edward and Jasper made an appearance in Charming. We had to move up our timetable. I told her. Shit. Okay, so you guys are headed here? She asked. Yeah, should be there by morning. I told her. Alright, I'll let SAMTAC know. Ride safe. Stay safe. I said and hung up. Edward Pav. This was not good. Jane was going to be pissed. Not to mention the fact that the Rough Riders seemed to have the backup of Samcro. Jane definitely won't like that. I had to figure out a way to get Bella away from everyone. Jasper was on the phone with Alice. He hung up from his phone call and looked at me. What? I asked. We got a problem. What kind of problem? Bella's got an old man kind of problem. Fuck. By the look on Jasper's face I could tell that there was more. Let me guess, there's more. I said and Jasper nodded. What is it? The guy's name is Happy Loman. His nickname is the Tacoma Killer. He said. Fuck. 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 She would find someone that's just as crazy as she is. I said. How are we gonna get her away from them? Jasper asked me. I have no fucking clue. I said. Bridget Pav. When I got off the phone with Bells, I looked for Kozik. He was standing with Lee and a couple other guys. I walked over to them. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, Bells just called and said that they're headed this way. Should be here by morning, she said. I told them. Thanks, Bridget. Since we're not having church till they get here, you can set up whatever you need to in there. Lee said. Thanks, appreciate it, I said, walking back to the room that I had been sharing with Kozik. Ever since I had arrived at the Tacoma clubhouse, I had been waking up from nightmares. The shit with the Italians had been fucking with my head. I grabbed my laptop and the pictures that I had printed off. I made my way back to the chapel, to set up and make sure that I had everything ready for when they got here. I had just set everything down on the table when I felt a pair of hands on my hips. You okay? Kozik asked me. I nodded, turning around. Bells told me something else when she called. I told him. He nodded. Lexi betrayed the club. She's dead. I said. Damn, you okay? He asked me, pulling me into his arms. I think so. I just can't believe that she would betray the club, and for what? An Italian bitch who had some hang-arounds beat the crap out of my cousin and rape her. I said. Kozik lifted my chin with one of his fingers. Look, Bells is tough. Hell, she's got Hap as her old man, she has to be. Kozik said. I nodded. When this is all done I wanna talk about you and me. He said. I nodded and watched him walk out of the room. In the short time that I had been at the Tacoma clubhouse, Kozik and I had grown close. Of course, we knew each other from the times that Bells and I had come down for parties. It was just that me being here the last couple of days we had grown closer. Part of me wondered if Kozik and I even had a future. Bella Pav. When we pull Ed into the parking lot at the Tacoma clubhouse, I sat in my car for a minute to take a breather. Now that we were here, I suddenly felt overwhelmed. When I climbed out of my car, Hap was walking up to me. You okay? He asked me. I nodded. Yeah, just ready to get this over with. I said. That's understandable. Let's go check on Bridget. He said and I nodded, noticing that everyone else was making their way into the clubhouse. When we walked into the clubhouse, Bridget approached me and pulled me into a hug. Hey, I said when she let me go. Hey, she said with a small smile. Lee and Trevor led me, Lex, Bridget, Clay and Jax into their chapel. The seven of us sat at the table going over our plan that we would put into effect the next day. Once we were done and everyone knew what was going to happen, Bridget and I grabbed a couple beers and found ourselves sitting outside. You okay with this plan? She asked me. I took a drink of my beer and nodded. Yeah, I'm the only one that can do it. I need to do it. I said. I looked over at Bridget and she nodded. How'd Aunt Jem take the news of you not only being a biker but being the club enforcer as well? She asked. I laughed. Not as G. Ood as when she found out that I had Hap's crow. I said. I'm sure. That's a big deal, an even bigger deal when you're an all-girl club. She said. Yep. Now I had to tell Bridget my plan for when this was all done. Listen, I gotta tell you something, I said, and she nodded. When this is all done I'm going back home to Charming, with Hap. I told her. I kind of figured that you would. I mean, you never wanted to leave him. She said. She was right. I didn't. You're not mad. She shook her head. Nope. I've been thinking about taking a step back myself. Really? She nodded. What changed? Kozik. Since I've been here, we've been getting close. This is the first night that he's let me out of his sight. She said. Can't say that I saw it coming. Kozik's a good guy though. I told her. I missed you. She said. I missed you too, cuz. Bella Pav. After Bridget, Lex and I had formed a plan with Clay, Lee and their VPs. Bridget and I were sitting outside. Lex wants me to be her VP. I said. What did you tell her? Bridget asked. That I needed to think about it. I said, taking a drink of my beer. And have you? She asked. I shrugged. Hap wants me home. I said. What are you going to do? She asked me. I shrugged. I don't know. I told Hap that I needed a break from Forks, but I don't know if Lex is gonna understand that. I said. Bridget put an arm around my shoulders. Bells. Lex is probably the most understanding person that I know besides you. Just explain to her that you need a break for a while and that you need to be with Hap. I'm sure that she'll understand. She said. I hope that you're right. I said. The next morning, we got up and I headed towards Forks. Lex and I figured that Edward and his crew were probably waiting for me, so I headed to the apartment to see if we were right. Even though I'd only been gone for a couple of days, the apartment didn't feel like home anymore. My home was back in Charming with Hap. I was wondering if you were going to show. Edward saw Ed walking out of my kitchen. I turned to look at him. So what's the plan? I asked him. Jane wants to talk to you. He said. I crossed my arms in front of my chest. And what if I don't want to talk to her? I asked him. He rolled his eyes. You don't exactly have a choice, Bella. Did you really think that we weren't going to figure out who you were? Who your family was? He said. My face must have said it all. Shocked. You really shouldn't be with the resources we have. It didn't take no time at all, really. What do you think is gonna happen if I meet with her? I mean, you really think that they let me come here and not follow me? You don't really know anything, do you? Do you have any idea what my brother and my old man are gonna do to you when they finally get their hands on you? I said to him. He leaned against the wall behind him. I look forward to it. I'll be in touch, he said before walking out the front door. When I made it back to my car, I pulled my phone out and called Lex. She answered on the second ring. We have a problem, I said. What kind of problem? She asked me. I sighed. I quickly told her that Edward had been waiting on me and told her about the conversation that we'd had. What do you think that Jane wants with you? She asked me. I honestly don't know. Part of me thinks that she just wants to kill me. I told her. I heard her sigh. All right, get back here and we'll deal with it. Your boys aren't gonna be happy about this new development. She said. I know. Does this change our plan? I asked. I don't know. We'll have to talk with the boys and see. She said. All right. I'll see you in a couple of hours. I said and hung up. I stuck my phone in my cup holder and pulled out of the parking lot, making my way back towards SAMTAC. Lex Pav. I closed my phone and laid it back on the nightstand. Everything okay? I heard Jax ask me. I turned over and looked at him. Not really. That punk was waiting at the apartment for her. I told her. He instantly looked worried. She's okay. She said that he just wanted to talk to her, but either way it isn't good. She's on her way back now. I told him. I laid back down and snuggled into his side. Hap isn't gonna like this. Not the fact that she went up there on her own or the fact that Douche was basically lying in wait. Jax said. I know. I don't think that she's gonna take the VP gig I offered her. I told him. Why? I don't know. Just a feeling. She told me that she needed to think about it. But I've been watching her and Hap since we arrived in Charming. Even though neither will probably admit it. He needs her just as much as she needs him. I told him. Maybe. But at the same time, I've watched her around you. She likes what she does and she doesn't want to disappoint you. He said. I looked up at him. She could never disappoint me, whether that means she becomes my VP or she decides to return to Charming with Hap. All I want is for her to be happy. I told I am before I laid my head back on his chest. You know, that day that I met her and Bridget, she looked so miserable. She was so angry. It took a while before she'd tell me anything. In the beginning, I thought that she might have still been angry from when your father died, but after a while she finally told me that it was because she'd fallen in love and that he'd agreed with you and Clay that the best thing was to get her out of town. Her and Bridget both thought that she'd be safe, but then everything happened with that Edward punk. It only got worse when she joined me. I never intended for her to get hurt. But you're right about one thing, I said. He raised an eyebrow at me. She loves what she does. Maybe that's why her and Hap are so good together. I told him, maybe I'm still not sure how I feel about that situation. Haven't really had time to think about it, I guess. He said, pulling me tighter into his side. Let me guess, part of you wants to be excited that she found someone. That's just as crazy as her, but at the same time you wanna beat the crap out of him because they kept it secret. I asked him, how did you? He trailed off. I get it. I do. When I first started the club, my first VP Jessica, she was my best friend. She fell in love with this guy from a rival club, La Push. Anyway, after about 6 months, she came to me. Told me she was leaving the club. I was stunned, shocked even. I didn't see it coming. That was when she'd told me the whole story. I hadn't even known that they were together. Threw me for a loop. Like I said, part of me wanted to be happy for her, but the other part of me wanted to beat the shit out of her for lying and keeping it a secret. I said, so what did you end up doing? He asked me. I sighed. Well, first the anger set in, but once I'd calmed down I knew that I couldn't hold it against her. I'd been in love once myself. Ended badly, but all the same I hoped that it wouldn't end badly for her. So I told her that I understood. And that if at any time she wanted to come back that she could. I'll do the same for Bells, if that's what she decides. I said, I just don't understand. Why did she feel that she had to keep it a secret? I mean, Bells knows how much we all love her. He said, questioning things. I can't answer that. Maybe it's something you and her should sit down and talk about at some point. I told him, Hap Pa, Lex and Jax had told me that Bells was on her way back. I couldn't believe that she'd left early this morning and that she'd gone to Forks by herself. It was completely reckless. I mean, I knew she could handle herself, she always could. I couldn't help but think about the day that I'd finally told her how I felt about her. Flashback. I'd been teaching Bells how to box. Clay thought, with the Mayan War starting, that it would be a good idea for Bells to know how to fight in case anything happened and none of the guys were around. She'd been doing good once she found her footing. She'd been holding her own. When we were done, I'd given her a ride back to the house. We'd just walked inside the house. Fortunately, no one was home. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to tell her with anyone else around. Bells, I said, and she turned from the fridge and looked at me. I love you, I said. She looked shocked. I don't know when it happened, honestly. All I know is that lately I can't get you out of my head. You're all I think about, and it's getting harder for me to be around your brother when you're in my head. I said, knowing that I probably wasn't making any sense. She closed the fridge and walked over to me. She wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed me. You're an idiot. You know that. I looked at her confused. I've been in love with you for a while. I've just been waiting on you to say something. She said with a smile. God, I loved her. I pulled her back in for a kiss. So does that mean you're mine? I asked her. What do you think? End flashback. That had been a great day. It had also been the first time that we'd slept together. I was pulled from my thoughts when I heard the crunching of gravel and then I saw her car. I agreed with Bells. I was definitely ready for all of this to be over. Then we could go home and start building a normal life, whatever that was. Bella Pa. That evening, I found myself sitting at the bar taking everything in. I kept going over everything in my head. The next morning we were all heading to La Push, who were also going to help us. I had a feeling that there was going to be a lot of mixed emotions when we got there. Jessica would be there, and I had a feeling that there might be a little bit of drama when we arrived, especially since Lexi was no longer with us. But at least we would have 4 full clubs in case everything went south. I was pulled from my thoughts by someone sitting down beside me. I looked over and saw Lex. Something on your mind? She asked me as the bartender handed each of us another beer. Just been thinking about things. I said. Anything in particular? She asked me as I took a drink. When I went back home, I started thinking about my life. When I first came to Forks, it wasn't supposed to be permanent. It was just meant to be safety. My family wanted to make sure that I was safe from the turf war going on near Charming. So, I came out here. I was angry and destructive. Then I met you and the rest of the club. You gave me a purpose and a way to channel my anger. I said, trying to articulate my feelings. Glad we could help, she said with a smile. Then everything happened. The pain I could get over that. It's the emotions that I've been trying to deal with. When I was laying in that hospital bed, the only thing that I kept thinking was I wanted to call Hap. When RST got home, he found out about everything, and I do mean everything. He was pissed. Told me that I should have called him when things started getting tough. But I couldn't. I knew if I called that he'd come, but I couldn't do that to him. I said. I could feel the tears building in my eyes. Ever since my dad had died, I didn't cry. Not often anyway. And if I did, it was never in front of anyone. I get it. Sometimes. Because of the life that we lead, it can get pretty lonely. God knows there have been plenty of nights where I've been lonely. But the one thing that I have learned over the years is that sometimes you have to figure out what your priorities are. Lex said. I know. And that's why everything has been so hard the last couple of days. Between getting hurt, going home, Michelle, Lexi, you asking me to be your VP, it all just been really confusing. But then I walked into mine and Bridget's apartment this morning and I realized something. That apartment isn't home anymore. I don't think that it ever really was. My home is in Charming with Hap. I can't be your VP, Lex. I said, finally letting the tears fall. She reached over and placed her hand over mine. Bells, I always knew there was a chance that you wouldn't stay forever. Do you remember what I told Jessica when she decided to leave? She asked me. I sighed. Of course I remembered what she'd told Jessica. Of course. Are you nervous about seeing her? I asked, trying to change the subject. She shrugged. I don't know about nervous. I'd actually thought about asking her to join us for this, especially since we're down 2 girls. Lex said. You think that she'll do it? I asked. I don't know. But I can at least ask her. She said, and I nodded. I really am sorry, Lex. Part of me wanted to be your VP more than anything, I said, trailing off. But you love Hap more. She said, and I nodded. I get it. Hopefully, I'll find that someday. She said. I saw her glance around the room and look at my brother. Might be closer than you think. I said. Before I stood up and went to look for Hap. Hap Pa. I hadn't really been in much of a party mood, so I'd retreated to mine and Bella's room. I knew that at some point she'd find me. I couldn't help but replay the conversation that we'd had this afternoon when she'd gotten back from Forks. Flashback. As soon as Bella had parked her car, I was at her door. I jerked open the door, grabbing her arm and pulling her out of the car. Do you have any idea how worried I've been? I glared at her. Hap, let go of my arm, you're hurting me. She said. I let go of her arm. I guess I'd grabbed her arm rougher than I'd intended to. Look, I know that you were worried. You're always worried when it comes to me. But I assure you that I'm fine. She said. I ran a hand over my face. I don't like the idea of that prick being anywhere near you. I told her. She nodded. I know. But I'm going to have to be near him a little bit so that we can finish this. She said. I sighed and ran a hand over my face. I know. I don't like it, but I know. I said, gently grabbing her hand and pulling her to me. I wrapped my arms around her and kissed the side of her head. Bells, I love you, you know I do. I just want all of this to be over. Flashback. I was just as frustrated with the situation as she was. I'd overreacted a little bit when I'd pulled her from the car. I laid there just staring at the ceiling until I heard the door close. I turned my head to see Bells leaning against the door. How's your arm? I asked her. She frowned. It's okay. There's a small bruise, she said. I nodded. I sat up on the bed and held my hand out for her. She walked over and placed her hand in mine. I gently pulled her into my lap. I'm sorry, I told her, looking up at her face. I know, she said, tilting her head down to kiss me. I talked to Lex. I told her that as much as I wanted to, I couldn't be her VP, that when all of this was done I was going home to Charming with you. She said. And this is what you want? I asked her. Despite how much I loved her and I loved being in Charming, if staying in the club as Lex's VP was what she wanted, I would transfer and we'd find a way to make everything work. I didn't want her to feel like I was forcing a decision out of her. It is. When I went to the apartment this morning, I realized that it wasn't home anymore. Part of me knows that it never was. That my home has always been in Charming with you. But being here for the last year, I'd made it my home with Bridget. She said. The only thing I could do was nod. I grabbed the back of her neck and pulled her down to me so I could kiss her. You mean everything to me, Bella. I told her. And it was the truth. The only other person in my life that even came close to her was my mother. I love you, she said. I quickly flipped us so that she was laying on the bed and I was hovering above her. I brushed some hair away from her face. I love you more than you know, I said, before kissing her again. Bella paused. The next morning, everyone loaded up and we all headed to Forks. We would be staying with La Push while we were there. I wasn't sure that everyone was going to be able to fit in the clubhouse, but I was sure that Sam and Jacob had probably figured all of it out. Since Bridget was riding with me, we spent majority of the ride talking about various things. Bridget told me that she had been thinking about her possible future with Kozik. When I questioned her about it, she told me that they'd grown close during her time at SAMTAC. As we crossed the border into Forks, for the first time in a long time, I took in the scenery. I'd already realized that Forks wasn't my home, but I also don't think that I'd taken the time to truly appreciate the beauty that was Forks. We continued our drive towards the outskirts of the reservation where the La Push Club had their clubhouse. Once we crossed into the reservation, it didn't long before we were pulling into the driveway of the clubhouse. Do you think she'll be here? Bridget asked me. Who? Jess or Leah? I asked her. I'd missed Leah in the time that I'd gone back to Charming. Bridget and I had met her when we worked at the bar and we'd found out that she had connections to the La Push Club. That had been our opening to work with them. It had been a great thing. Both. I'm sure that Leah will be there. I mean, her brother is part of the club. Jess. Hard to tell. Lex wants to see if Jess will join us temporarily on this. And I'm gonna talk to Leah. I told her. You think they will? She asked. I shrugged. Hard to tell. Guess we're about to find out, I said, parking my car. I killed the engine and took a deep breath before I climbed out of my car. We made our way over to where Lex was standing with Clay, Jax, Lee, and Donut. If I have Lee's VP listed as someone else, I can't find it. Sorry. Boys. You know Bells and Bridget. Bells is acting as my VP for the time being. S is Clay and Jax from Samcro and Lee and Donut from SAMTAC. They'll be joining us. Lex said to Sam. Nice to meet you guys. Bells, nice to have you back. The girls have been worried about you, Sam said to me. I glared at him. All of them? I asked, knowing that Sam's old lady didn't like me. Yes, all of them, he said, and I nodded. We've got plenty of room for you guys. Lex, Bells, and Bridget know their way around here. If you can't find what you're looking for, feel free to ask. Club heads will meet in our meeting room when you're ready, Sam said. La Push had expanded their clubhouse a while back, building more rooms so that they had plenty of space for visitors. I had Bridget show Hap to a room while I went in search for Leah. I needed to talk to her before the meeting. When I found her, she was wiping down the bar. Lee, I said. She looked up at me and smiled. She ran around the bar and pulled me into a big hug. I'm so happy that you're here. Sam told me that Edward and his douchebag friends had hurt you and I was so worried. Then Bridget said that you'd gone home to California. Leah rambled. Thanks, Lee. I need to talk you. It's important, I said. She nodded, pulling me into the kitchen and locking the door. What's going on? She asked me. Lex and I are down 2 girls. She's gonna talk to Jess, but Lee, will you help us? I asked her. One thing I knew about Leah was that she was just as strong as any of the La Push guys. You really want me to? She asked me. I nodded. Then I'm in, she said with a smile. I pulled her into a hug this time. Thanks, Lee, I said. After talking to Leah, I headed to find Lex. She was talking to Jess, so I decided to wait at the bar. I sit at the bar and the prospect that I recognize as Leah's brother, Seth, hands me a shot of whiskey. Thanks, Seth, I say, and he smiles at me. As soon as I down the shot, I hear a familiar voice behind me. Why is there always trouble when you're around? The voice said. I plastered a fake smile on my face and turned to face her. How you doing, Emily? Still keeping Sam on a tight leash? I ask. She glares at me. Just handle your business and get the fuck out. Emily says. What irritates you more? The fact that I'm here? Or the fact that Sam and the boys are helping us? I asked, smirking at her. I notice Sam out of the corner of my eye walking towards us. And he doesn't look happy. Oops. Guess someone's in trouble. When he gets to us, he grabs Emily by the arm. The fuck you doing? He asks her. You know what? I don't care. Take your ass home, he tells her. She glares and scoffs at him. Before storming out of the clubhouse, he turns to me. Sorry about her. I don't know why she's always a bitch to you. He tells me. I raise an eyebrow at him. Are you serious? I ask him. He nods. It's because of how close I am to Leah. Not to mention the fact that you and the boys like me a lot more than her. Look, I know that you love her, Sam, but I really think that you should give your relationship a hard look before you consider making her your old lady. I tell him. He shoves his hands into the front pockets of his jeans and nods. I know. It's hard though. We've been together for so long now. I don't wanna hurt her. Not to mention that she knows too much. Sam says. I shake my head. That's not enough of a reason to keep her around. And, if by some chance she does become a problem, give me a call. I'll handle it, free of charge, I told him. He gives me a weak smile. You've always been too understanding. He says. Nah, that's just me, I said, turning back to Seth, and he pours me another shot. Sam sits down beside me as I down the shot. Seth grabs Sam a beer before I wave him off and he disappears. You ever think about what would have happened if you and Leah had stayed together? I ask him. He nods. All the time. Sometimes I think I made a mistake breaking up with her. He says. Why did you? I asked. Her dad was the VP when Billy Black was the president. When Leah and I were dating and I decided to prospect for the club, he told me that if I did that I needed to let Leah go. Give her a chance at a normal life. Sam said. So you picked the club over Leah? I asked and he nodded. And how's that working out for you? I asked. Shitty. Makes me question everything that I've done since then. Sam said. Then maybe it's time for a change. I said. Before I stood up and made my way over to Lex Pav. When it was time, Sam and Jared, Lee and Donut, Clay and Jax, and me and Bells joined the guys in the La Push meeting room. I wanna thank everyone for helping us with this problem, I said, starting the meeting. Sam, you or Jared are slightly familiar with this group, but I wanna ask, have you guys noticed anything new in our absence? I asked. Sam shook his head from his chair. Nothing. They've been eerily quiet. It's like they're waiting for something. Sam said. Bells leaned back in her chair. Yeah, that's 'cause they are. They're waiting for me. I popped into mine and Bridget's apartment the other day and Edward was waiting for me. He said that Jane wants to meet with me. Problem is, if I go in there without backup, I have this feeling that she's gonna kill me. Bella said. That's not gonna happen. Clay said. Well, let's figure out a plan so that we can end this shit. I said, lighting a cigarette. Jane Pav. It had been a few days since Edward had talked to Bella. She would come to me soon. I could feel it. She would come meet with me and I'd take her back to Italy with me. The master would be pleased with her. He'd been wanting to take a new bride for some time and I knew that she would be perfect. I was sitting in the living room enjoying a cup of coffee when I saw Carlisle walking out of the corner of my eye. Yes, I said. Forgive me, but are you sure about this plan? He asked me. I smiled wickedly. Of course. Arrow is excited to meet her. I told him. But she's only 17. She's just a child. Carlisle snapped at me. I stood up and glared at him. Are you questioning me? I snapped. He hung his head. Of course not. He said. Good. Make the necessary preparations. She'll be arriving soon. I can feel it, I said before sitting back down. Bella Pav. It was 2 days later when we decided to put our plan into action. When I woke up that morning, Hap was still asleep. I kissed his forehead before I climbed out of bed. I knew that this would be hard for him, but the sooner that I got this over with, the sooner we could go home and get on with our lives. After taking in a shower and getting dressed, I made my way down to the barroom of the clubhouse. Leah, Sam, and Lex were waiting for me. Leah hugged me immediately. Sam gave me a nod. Lex watched me for a minute. I looked at her curiously. What? I asked. Are you sure you want to go through with this? She asked me. I nodded. I don't have a choice. She's not going to give up and I'm going to spend my life in hiding while others fight for me. I told her. She nodded. All right. I can't argue with that. SAMTAC is already in position. Me and the girls are heading out in 10 minutes. Lapush will be on one side of the house in the woods, while Samcro will be on the other side. Lex told me. I nodded. If something happens to me, give this to Hap, my brother and my mother. I said, pulling 3 envelopes out of my back pocket and handing them to Lex. She put a hand on my shoulder. I will. But nothing is going to happen to you. She said. I gave her a weak smile. Driving toward the Cullens' house, I couldn't help but think about things that I could be doing other than this. I didn't regret the time that I'd spent with Lex, but sometimes I wished that I'd never left Charming. Maybe if I hadn't then I couldn't think like that. One thing that I'd learned throughout my life was that everything happened for a reason. Pulling into the long drive, I parked my car in front of the garage and killed the engine. I took a deep breath before I stepped out of the car. I slowly walked around the car and made my way up the front porch steps. I knocked twice on the front door and waited. A minute later, the door opened and I was greeted by Alice. Hi, you must be Isabella. I'm Alice. Please come in, she said, holding the door open for me. I stepped inside the house and Alice closed the door behind me. This way. Jane is waiting for you in the study. Follow me, Alice said as she led me through the house. She stopped in front of a door. She's just inside, Alice said, before she opened the door for me. I walked inside. Shut the door, I heard someone say. I closed the door and walked further into the room. Please sit, the voice said from behind a desk. I sat in one of the chairs that was in front of the desk. You must be Isabella. I'm Jane, she said. Pleasure, I said sarcastically. She laughed. You'd be mindful to watch your tone with me. I'd hate to have to call my brother and watch him torture you. Jane said. I paused for a beat. Before I decided to speak. Heard you wanted to talk to me. I said to Jane. She nodded even though I could barely see her in the dimly lit room. I did. I'm intrigued by you. I've watched you. You're a fighter, she said. Thanks. I'll be sure to tell my brother and boyfriend that you complimented them on my fighting skills. I said. What was she getting at? She laughed. Sense of humor too. I like that. I want to recruit you. She said. Why? I asked. Because you tough, strong and you're not afraid to speak your mind. She said. Hate to break it to you but I already have a job. I said. She let out a loud sigh. Ah yes. The Rough Riders. Lexi mentioned you. Mentioned what you do for the club. Jane said. Don't talk about her. Don't even say her name. I growled. She narrowed her eyes at me. Why? Does it make you mad that I was able to bring her over to my side? Jane questioned me. Lexi was her own person. But let me ask you this. What was the point of it all? All you did was get her killed by my hand. I growled. She had a wicked smile on her face. Exactly. That's why I want you. I want to team you up with Emmett who is my enforcer. Jane said. Afraid I'm gonna have to pass. I said. Jane leaned forward a bit in her chair and narrowed her eyes at me again. Afraid that's not possible. You see, my boss, Master Arrow, he's very intrigued with you. He'll be arriving soon from Volterra. He's been looking for a wife. And I happen to think that you just might be perfect for him. Jane said. Again afraid I'm gonna have to pass. I'm already taken, I said, never showing any emotion on my face. She leaned back in her chair. Unfortunately, that's unacceptable, Jane said. She did something that I couldn't quite see. A few seconds later, the door opened. Alec, dear brother, please miss tell her downstairs until Master Arrow arrives. Jane said. I looked over at the door. The guy that was standing there walked over to me and grabbed my arm, pulling me up from the chair. He pulled me out of the room and led me downstairs. We passed several rooms until we stopped at one. It looked like it was set between a combination of a dungeon cell and a bedroom. You'll stay here until Arrow arrives, Alex said, pushing me into the room before closing the door, and I heard the lock click. Well fuck. Lex paused. Something wasn't right. Everyone was in position but Bella should have given the signal by now. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and opened the group text that we'd created between myself, Jax, Lee, and Sam. Lex. Something's not right. Jax. Where is she? Saw. There's some noise coming from the basement. Lee. Gonna send a couple guys closer. See if they can find out anything. Lex. Let us know. I was worried. In a way I felt like we were all sitting ducks. I worried that Bella was in over her head. I was worried that we hadn't thought this through enough. It wasn't long before I felt my phone vibrate in my hand. Lee. They've got Bella locked up in the basement. Donut can hear her yelling. Jax. Stupid fuckers. I'm gonna kill them all. Lex. Can we get in through a door down there? Sam. Looks like we can. Want us to go ahead? I looked at Leah and Jess. It's time, I said. Without the signal. Leah asked. I sighed. Apparently they have her locked up in the basement. We don't know why though. I'm about to send LaPush in through the basement. I said. They both nodded. I looked back at my phone. Lex. Go ahead. LaPush through the basement door. Get her out of there as quietly as possible and find out what's going on. Sam. Got it. Stand by. I took a deep breath and let it out. Now we wait. I said. Jack's paw. I didn't like this. As soon as Lex's text came through saying that something wasn't right, I knew it wasn't. I turned to Clay. What? He asked. It's Belle's. They've got her locked up in the basement. LaPush is trying to see if they can get in through the outside basement door and get her out. I told him. He nodded. Do you still Avenue the twin telepathy going on with your sister? Clay asked me. I slowly nodded. You want me to try and see if I can pinpoint her? I asked him. He nodded. Yes, see if you can find her and let Sam know. He said. I closed my eyes and focused on Bella. I could see images. I could see Bella. She was in what looked like a dungeon bedroom. I looked around the room. There was a window but it had bars on the window. I turned around and looked at the door. I slowly walked towards it. I pushed my hand at it and it went through the door. I stepped through the door and I was in a hallway. I looked up and down the hallway and on one end there was a door. It had windows on it. It must be the outside door. I started walking towards it, counting the doors as I passed them. When I got to the door at the end of the hall, I opened my eyes. That was weird. I said. You okay? Clay asked me. I nodded. Yeah, but it was like I was actually there. I told him. He nodded. Text them what you found. He said and I nodded. I pulled the text up. Jax. When you go through the basement door, she's the third door on the left. Sam. How do you know? Jax. Twin telepathy. It was weird. I'll explain later. Sam. Got it. We'll get her. And we wait. Bella paw. This was so frustrating. I was a sitting duck. The window had bars on it and the door was locked. There was no way that I could get out of here. The only thing that I could do was hope that LaPush would hear me yelling and that they could find a way in through the basement. Surely, there was an outside door. Didn't all basements have them? After pacing for a while and yelling, I decided that since I couldn't do anything I might as well get comfortable. I walked over to the bed and sat on it. And I wait. Hopefully, LaPush or somebody could get me out of here before Arrow showed up. I knew nothing about him. Sam paw. I looked over at Jared as we made our way closer to the house from our spot in the woods. I'd just gotten a text from Jack's telephone. Ling me where he thought she was in the basement. Jack says that it's the third door on the left when we go in. I whispered to Jared. How does he know? Jared asked. He says twin telepathy. I replied. That's a real thing. Paul asked. I shrugged. I guess so. Let's just get her out of there. We have no idea what's going on. I said and they both nodded. We'd left the rest of the club back in her hidden spot in the woods so that they could warn us if they happened to see something. We crept closer to the house and I saw a door. I pointed out the door to Paul and Jared. I told Jared to stand guard at the door while Paul and I went in to get Bella. After all, Paul was the strongest in the club. Jared nodded and Paul put his ear to the door to listen. When he didn't hear anything, he leaned up and looked through one of the panes of glass. Coast is clear, Paul said and he eased the door open. We quietly closed the door behind us and crept down the hallway. We walked quietly until we found the third door. They had it locked from the outside. Shit, can you break it? I asked Paul. He shook his head. No, and I don't have anything with me to pick it. He said. Double shit. Now what do we do? I asked. We need somebody that can pick the lock. Paul said. All right, let's go back and regroup. I said and Paul nodded. We made our way back out of the house to where the rest of the club was. Anybody got anything that can pick a lock? I asked. Everyone shook their heads. I nodded. I pulled my phone out. Sam, need someone that can pick a lock. They've got a master lock on it. Lex, on it. Leah's making her way over. This was news to me. Since when could she pick locks? Sam, since when? Lex, no clue but she said she's got a kid with her. Wait on her. Jax, there's 2 cars pulling into the driveway. Lee, I'm starting to get worried. Hap's about to lose his shit if we don't get her out of there soon. Sam, working as fast as we can. Can't help that we ran into a little problem. When I closed my phone and stuck it back in my pocket, I saw Leah approaching. She walked over to me. Since when can you pick locks? I asked the girl that once upon a time, I'd wanted to marry. She glared at me. There's a lot that you don't know about me, Sam Yuli. Now let's get going so that we can get my girl out of there. Leah said as quietly as she could. I nodded. Paul and I led Leah back to the basement door, leaving Jared behind with the club this time. Once again, Paul put his ear to the door and listened. When he didn't hear anything, he looked through the window pane again. All clear, Paul said. I nodded. I quietly opened the door, letting Leah go first. I followed behind her. It's the 3rd door on the left. I whispered to Leah. She nodded. As we approached the door, I felt my phone vibrate again. I pulled it out to look as Leah got started on the lock. Jax, the Italian guys climbed out of the car. You think this could be the bosses? Lex, it's gotta be. Problem is we know nothing about them. Lee, you guys close to getting her out. Got it. Leah whispered as the lock popped open. Sam, got the lock open. Bella Pav. I was sitting on the bed when I heard the door. I turned to look, when I saw Leah's face. What are you doing? I asked her. I jumped up and ran to hug her. Everybody was getting bad vibes. A car pulled up recently. We think it might be the bosses. Leah told me. I nodded. It is. Jane thinks that I would make the perfect wife for Arrow, the leader. They put me down here to wait for his arrival. I told her. She turned to look into the hallway. Sam poked his head in. Bells, we gotta get out of here. Hap's getting antsy. Sam told me. I took a deep breath and let it out. Here's what we're gonna do, I said. Lee Pav, I wished that they'd hurry the fuck up. I'm about ready to bust in there and shoot everyone. Hap said. I knew that he was starting to lose it. He just wanted to get in there and make sure that Bella was okay. I understood that. If it was my girl in there, I'd be the same way. I felt my phone vibrate. I pulled it out of my pocket and opened it. Sam, got the lock open. They got the lock open. Shouldn't be too much longer till they get her out. I told Hap. He nodded. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. I looked at it. Sam, B has a new plan. She wants to wait for them to come get her and she wants to sneak attack. So bad news, I said. Hap turned and glared at me. How bad? He asked me. Bella has decided to stay and do a sneak attack. I said. He rolled his eyes. I'm making my way over there. Let them know. Ombody has to knock some sense into my old lady. Hap said before he took off through the woods. Lee, Hap's on his way and he's not happy. Jax, why does my sister have to be so stupid? Sam, Bella said to get the pyro ready. I rolled my eyes. This was not going to be pretty. Jax Pav. Ope, I called. It didn't take long before he was by my side. What's up? Ope asked me. Did you bring the remote detonator? I asked. He looked at me confused for a second. He nodded. Yeah, Bells suggested it. Why? He asked. I shook my head. Damn it, Bells. I said. What's going on? Clay asked. Hap's freaking out. Bells is on some kind of suicide mission. She wants Ope to wire up the pyro. I said. Oh my god. She's a freaking genius. Juice said from behind me. We turned to look at him. What do you mean? Clay and I asked him at the same time. She's gonna wound them just enough to make it where they can barely move, then get out and blow the house up. 2 birds, 1 stone, Juice said. Why hadn't any of us thought about that? Jane Pav. When Jasper let me know that Arrow, Marcus and Keys had arrived, we all made our way toward the living room to greet them, with me standing in front. Carlisle Gray. eted them at the door and led them inside, taking his place beside me. Masters, I greeted, bowing to them. Dearest Jane. Arrow greeted me when I looked up at him. Is she here? The girl that you told me about? He asked me. I nodded. Yes, master. We have her locked downstairs so that she couldn't leave until you arrived. I told him. He clapped his hands together in joy. Wonderful. Bring some coffee into the study and get her for me. Arrow said. I bowed my head. Of course, master. I said. When I lifted my head, I looked for my brother. Alec. I called. It didn't take long before he was by my side. Did you get the dress for her? I asked him. He nodded. Yes, but I haven't given it to her yet. Alex said. I nodded. Take Alice with you. Have her put the dress and bring her up to Arrow. I told him. He nodded. He grabbed Alice and they made their way downstairs. Bella paused. Look, I know that it sounds stupid, but I can assure you that it's going to work. I have my knife on my ankle. They'll never suspect it. I told Leah and Sam. Sam started shaking his head. He looked at his phone. Hap's on his way. He's not happy. Sam told me. You have to stop him. If he's already pissed off, he's a shoot first ask questions later kind of guy. I told Sam. Bells, it's out of my hands. I'm supposed to be getting you out of here. Sam said. Bells, come on, think about this. It's gonna go one of two ways: either they're gonna force you to marry their leader or they're gonna kill you. You really expect any of us to risk those odds? Leah asked me. She had a good point. We were about to walk out of the room when I heard an all too familiar voice. Have you lost your goddamned mind? Hap growled at me as he stepped into the room. I glared at him and he glared back. Is the pyro ready? I asked. I looked at Sam. He pulled his phone out to find out. After a couple of minutes, he looked over at me. Pyro's ready. OP's on standby. Sam said. I nodded. If the leaders are here, it won't be long until they come to get me. I told them. What the hell is going on? Hap asked. I turned and looked at Hap. The leader is intrigued by my based off what Jane has seen of me. They seem to think that I'll make the perfect wife for him. I said. Over my dead body. Hap growled. Okay, so here's what we do. You three go wait right outside the basement door. Keep an eye out for when they come to get me. Once they're in here with me, we ambush them, kill them and then start making our way through the house. I told them. The three of them nodded. We've also got Paul right outside too. Sam said. I smiled my wicked smile. Good. Get going. I said. Hap rushed over and kissed me, hard. I love you. He said. I love you too. Now go. I said. The three of them rushed out the door, closing it behind them. I heard the lock click in place. I went back to sit on the bed. Back to waiting. But it was gonna be glorious when we finally blew the top off this place. Alice paused. Something didn't quit. Feel right as Alec and I made our way downstairs with the dress that Jane had picked out for Bella. She was hoping that Bella would impress Arrow and that maybe he wouldn't get rid of any of us. The Ings had come to clean house, so to speak. When we reached the door to the room where Alec was keeping Bella, he turned to me. You're only here to make sure that she's presentable for Arrow. He growled at me. I narrowed my eyes at him. I know my purpose. I told him. Good. Alex said as he unlocked the lock on the door and opened it. Bella was sitting on the bed. When we opened the door, she turned her head to look at us. We're here to make you presentable for Master Arrow. I told her in a sweet voice. When we stepped inside, Alec closed the door behind us. It didn't matter, it's not like there was anybody else on this floor. And that means, Bella said. Alec held up the dress that he'd brought down for her. It was a beautiful fancy ball gown. We're gonna need for you to put this dress on. I said. She shook her head. Sorry, but I don't do dresses. Ask my mother. She said sarcastically. I crossed the room and grabbed her by the arm. I threw her up against the wall and pinned her there by her throat. Listen here, you little bitch. Edward targeted you because Jane sent him to find the perfect wife for Arrow. Apparently that's you. Now, you're going to put on this dress and then I'm going to fix your hair and then you will go be presented to Master Arrow. I told her. She gritted her teeth. Not going to fucking happen, she growled out. Just then the door busted open and there were three guys and a girl standing there. The bald one narrowed his eyes at me. You might want to let go of my fucking wife. He growled at me. Bella paused. You might want to listen, I gasped out. Suddenly, Alice let go of my throat and I dropped to the floor. I looked up at Hap. Hi honey, I said. He smiled wickedly. I grabbed the knife from my hiding spot at my ankle. While Alice was distracted looking at my crew, I stood up from behind her and reached around and slit her throat. As I let go of her body, I watched it fall to the floor with a thud. I wiped my knife off on my pants before I looked up at Alec. I tilted my head to the side like a dog would, narrowing my eyes at Alec. Now, what were you saying about that dress? I asked him. He narrowed his eyes at me, while Paul and S.M. each grabbed one of his arms to hold him in place. Hap moved to stand in front of Alec so that he couldn't see me. One thing about Hap, he didn't like anybody to touch what was his. I walked over to Hap. He turned and looked at me. You okay, baby? Hap asked me. I nodded. Are you gonna play, baby? I asked him, looking up at him through my lashes. I knew how it was when he got to torture or kill somebody. He nodded. Did he touch you? Hap asked me. He grabbed my arm earlier, before he pulled me down here. I told him. Hap turned back towards Alec. Did you touch her? Hap asked him. Cool. See that Alec was starting to shake a little bit. Hap could be intimidating when he wanted to be. Alec started shaking his head. He tried to fight the guy's hold on him. Gonna ask again. Did you touch her? This time Alec nodded his head. I was just doing what I was told. Alec stuttered out. Hap reached between us and grabbed the knife that was in my hand. He reached up and held the knife against Alec's throat. Here's a lesson for your next life: don't touch what isn't yours. Hap said, before he slit Alec's throat. When Alec's body went limp, Sam and Paul dropped him to the floor. Hap realized that Alec was dead and that he wasn't getting back up. He turned towards me and grabbed a handful of my hair, pulling backwards until I was looking into his eyes. Then he got close to my face. One of these days you're going to learn to listen to me. Hap growled at me. I put a wicked grin on my face. He knew what pulling my hair did to me. Yes dear, I said, playfully. When he let go of my hair, I stood and turned to Sam. Let everyone know to start moving on the house. But Jane is mine, I said. Lex Pav. I hoped that Bella was okay. Jess and I were standing there waiting for news. Do you think that she'll be okay? Jess asked me. I slowly nodded. Yes. I don't think that she's come this far, planned her exit just to get killed. I told her. I turned to look at Jess. She's leaving? Jess asked me. I nodded, turning back to look at the house. Yes. She's ready to head back to Charming and settle down with Hap. Although she'll come back if we ever need her. Hap's offered his services too. I told her. Do you ever think about it? She asked me and I snapped my head to look at her. My face must have said it all. Settling down, getting married, maybe popping out a couple of kids. She asked me. I shrugged, turning back to look at the house. Sometimes. Although I've never really wanted kids. Maybe with the right guy, I might change my mind. I said to her. I felt my phone vibrate, so I pulled it out to look. Sam. Start moving in on the house. B called dibs on Jane. A short blonde. I couldn't help but laugh. Lex. Of course she did. Move in. Let's go. I instructed my club. Jack's Pav. I turned to Opie and Tig. I need the two of you to stay here. I told them. I looked at Tig. Nothing gets to him. I need you to make sure that everything is out of his way for when I give the word about the pyro. I told Tig. He nodded. Let's move. I told everyone. We started making our way towards the house. It was time to make these fuckers pay. I just hoped that Bella and Hap could keep their shit together until we got in there. Bella Pav. We started making our way up the stairs where the others were, with Hap leading. We crept up the stairs. The first person that we came across was Rosalie, who had her back to us. According to my intel, she just handled their delivery. She should be easy enough to take down. Hap sneaked up behind her and he placed his hand over her mouth. I quickly moved so that my back was against the wall and he passed her down to Paul, who disappeared with her down the stairs and hallway. No doubt he was locking her in the room with Alice and Alec. I tried to creep past him but he caught me. He leaned down to my ear. Wait. We listened for the front door to open and for the others to come in. Hap whispered. When he stood back up, I nodded. I noticed that his eyes were dark. They were almost pitch black. Who's the fucker that raped you? He asked me. Edward. He's the ginger. I whispered. His death is mine. Hap growled. I nodded. I don't know what it was, but something in that moment about him out for blood had turned me on. He peeked around the corner, and he must have seen what he was waiting for because he started walking forward. Jane Pav. I was standing there waiting with Arrow for Alec to bring Bella up, when I noticed the front door opening. There were several guys with leather vests walking in, guns raised. Don't fucking move, a blonde guy said. I glared at him. Who the fuck are you? I asked. One of you worst fucking nightmares. He said. I crossed my arms over my chest. Oh yeah, and who's the other? I asked. That would be him, he said, nodding behind me. I turned around and saw Bella standing behind a bald guy that wasn't much taller than she was. Who the fuck are you? I asked. You the bitch that sent fuckward after my girl. He growled at me. Might be, I said, with a smirk. What are you gonna do about it? I asked. I normally don't kill women, but I might have to make an exception for you. The bald one said. Aw, baby, you promised. Bella said from behind him. What the fuck? He turned to look at her. Are you gonna play or just kill? He asked her. She looked like she was thinking. Because if you're just gonna kill, we might have to renegotiate. He said. She looked up at him, with a look of lust in her eyes. What if I let you play with her? I kill her. Then I get to play with you. She said in a playful tone. Who the fuck were these people? He growled slightly, before he pulled her in for a kiss. Guys, I'm standing right here. I don't wanna see this shit. Can we just get this done? So we can get the fuck out of here. The blonde behind me said. Bella and the bald one pulled apart and turned to face me. Sam, take her downstairs and keep her separated from the others. Bella told a tall guy behind her. He walked over to me, grabbing me and throwing me over his shoulder. You won't get away with this. Arrow will have all your heads. I demanded. Oh, shut up. The one carrying me said. Bella Pav. Hap. Jackson. I made our way into the study where I knew the bosses would be waiting. The others were taking care of the stragglers. When we walked in, I was surprised to see Edward sitting in there with the bosses. Edward. I growled. Bella. He said, ever so calmly. I looked to the desk where Jane had been sitting the last time I had been in this room and saw a guy with long black hair sitting there. There was a guy on each side of him. One had blonde hair and the other had dark hair. You must be Bella. The one sitting down said. I am. I said. Jane was right. You are beautiful. You shall make an exquisite queen when we return to Italy. Arrow said. Don't think so. I said. I never moved from my spot between Jax and Hap. It doesn't quite work that way, Isabella. Arrow said, causing a shiver to run down my spine. There was something about the way he'd said my name that didn't sit right with me. You see, if you come willingly, I will leave your family and friends unharmed. If you don't, well then, I'm not sure that I can be held accountable for what will happen to them. Is that a threat? I heard Hap growl next to me. Arrow snapped his head over to Hap, who was slowly inching closer to Edward. Jax was still beside me and I knew that he wouldn't leave my side. No, it's a promise, Arrow said. Well, I hate to break it to you, but she won't be going anywhere with you. And none of you will be leaving here alive. Jax growled. Once the words were out of his mouth, everything happened so quickly. Jax was pushing me towards the door while Hap closed the remaining distance to Edward. They quickly started fighting. Edward was no match for Hap. Arrow and the blonde one made their way towards us. I glanced back over at Hap and he quickly ended Edward's life before joining us. Hap and Jax took their fighting stance in front of me. Hap passed me his pistol since he had my knife. I knew why he had handed me the gun. He wanted me to be quick in case any of them got past him and Jax. I took a couple steps back, leaning against the door. The blonde made his way towards Jax. Jax quickly lifted his gun and shot the blonde in the chest 3 times. When he fell to the floor, Jax walked over and shot him in the head before turning towards Hap. He let Hap do his thing, only being nearby in case he was needed. Hap never once let Arrow get anywhere near me. When Arrow tried to lunge at Hap, Jax pulled his gun and shot Arrow in the leg. Arrow immediately fell to the floor. Hap turned and glared at Jax. Just helping. Jax shrugged. Hap nodded and leaned over Arrow. Jax, step out, Hap said. Jax looked at me and I nodded. Jax made his way out of the room, leaving me and Hap with a bleeding Arrow. You fucked up coming after my girl. You see, I am more than enough man for her to handle. Can you imagine what she must be like, me fucking her senseless while she screams my name?" Hap taunted. I rolled my eyes. "Hap," I said. He turned to look at me with a smirk on his face. "Just end him. We have other things to do." "My pleasure, babe," Hap said as he turned back to Arrow slitting his throat. When he was sure that Arrow was dead, he looked up at the remaining guy that was still standing in the corner. I raised the pistol at him. "No need to worry. I won't fight you," he said. "Why?" Hap asked. "Arrow killed my wife years ago. She was his sister. He didn't like T. Had her loyalty had switched from him to me," he said. I cocked my head to the side. "Isn't that what normally happens in a marriage?" I asked. "Yes. But Arrow is a very selfish man. Always has been," the man said. "If you mean us no harm, then what do you want?" Hap asked. "I just want to die so that I can be reunited with my dear sweet Didim," he said. Hap and I both nodded. "We can make that happen. We can make it painless too," Hap said. "Thank you," he said. Hap turned to me and took the gun from my hand. "Thank you for not wanting to harm my girl," Hap said. He nodded. "Cherish each other. You never know when it will be the last time that you will see each other," he said, right before Hap shot him in the head. Jack's paw. While Bella and Hap were dealing with the remaining two bosses, I started making my rounds through the house to see who all was left. Bodies were dropping like flies. Soon we would be able to get out of here and Bella would be safe. When I rounded the corner into a bedroom upstairs, I saw Lex being pinned on the floor by a big blonde dude. I crept up behind him and put my gun against the back of his head. "I wouldn't if I was you," I said. "What do you want?" he asked. "Remove yourself from the lady," I said, easing back as he stood up. I looked around him, down at Lex. "You aight?" I asked. She nodded. "Good," I said, pulling the trigger and watching him drop to the floor. I reached my hand out to help her up. When she stood up, I grabbed the back of her head and pulled her to me, crashing my lips to hers. Sam Pav. I was downstairs in the basement guarding the door to the room that I'd put that Jane girl in. I'd heard numerous gunfire going on throughout the house. I was ready for this to be over with. I had something that I needed to do. I'd been thinking about the conversation that I'd had with Bella the other night, periodically. I couldn't help but think about the fact that she was right. Emily had somehow wormed her way into my life, causing me to push Leah away, and I hadn't stopped it. I had to figure out a way to make it right. If I could. I was pulled from my thoughts by the sight of Bella, Hap, and Paul coming down the hallway. "Can we finish this now?" I asked. Bella nodded. "Yeah, everyone else is making their way back out," Bella said. I nodded. "The only two that are left are Jane and Rosalie. Rosalie can go up with the house, I don't care. But Jane, I'm about to have fun with her," she said with a wicked grin. I handed her the key that I'd found above the door for the room. She looked at me. "If you and Paul want to head out, you can. Hap and I won't be long," she said before unlocking the door. Her and Hap disappeared inside, closing the door behind them. "Come on," I said to Paul, "let's grab Jared and head back." I told him. He nodded. Hap paw. When Bella and I walked into the room, Jane stood there and just stared at her. "Did you come to attempt to kill me?" Jane asked. "Oh no, I will succeed. But I just thought that you might want to know that everyone else is dead, including Edward," Bella said. "Did I miss something? When did you figure it out?" Jane asked. "When I went to my old apartment and Edward ambushed me." He kept repeating himself. "Jane this Jane that, how long had you been fucking him?" Bella asked. "Shit, I didn't see that coming. It's been a long time. Edward is my other half. Arrow said that if we found him a wife, he'd let Edward and I live our lives in peace." Jane explained. Well, that definitely won't be happening. Hap, here slit Edward's throat," Bella said, taunting her. I rolled my eyes at Bella tactic. Jane glared at her. "So now what? You gonna kill me? Then what are you gonna do? It's not gonna be easy hiding a dozen bodies," Jane said. Bella cocked her head to the side. Ho said anything about hiding the bodies?" Bella asked her. Jane's face paled. "Belle, come on. Get on with it, I tell her." Bella sighed. "Oh, all right," Belle said. She took the pistol that I handed her and shot Jane everywhere that she could think of. She ended up emptying the clip. Jane dropped to the floor. When she realized that Jane was dead and that she couldn't hurt her anymore, Bella turned to me and sighed. "It's over," I said, reassuringly. She nodded. "It's finally over," she said. I held my hand out to her. "Come on, let's go. Opie is itching to light this place up," I told her. She nodded, taking my hand. Lee Pa. When I saw Hap and Bella making their way to us, I pulled my phone out. "Lee, Hap and Bella are with me. We're whole. Sam is too. Jax, we're good. Lex, light it up. Get ready," I said. Hap and Bella made their way through the guys to where I was standing with Donut. I pulled Bella into a hug. I loved her like I did my own daughter. "You okay?" I asked her. She nodded. "Yeah, Lee, I'm okay," she said, and I nodded at her. A few minutes later, we heard the boom before we saw the flames. We all stood there beside Bella and Hap, knowing that she'd want to watch this. "Let's get out of here," Hap said, leading Bella away from the flames. Bella Pa. When we made it back to the La Push clubhouse, I immediately headed towards the room that Hap and I had been staying in. I needed a shower. I felt gross. As soon as I stepped foot in the room, I began stripping out of my clothes, making my way into the bathroom. I reached into the shower and turned the warm on, letting it heat up. I had just stepped into the shower and let the water run over me when I felt Hap's hands on my waist. "Are you okay?" he asked me. I nodded. "Yeah, I've been working towards this for a while, and now that it's finally over, I'm not sure how to feel," I told him honestly. "I get that. Now what?" he asked me. She sighed. "Well, I talked to Lex and told her that I was leaving and coming home with you." I told him. "I can't tell you how happy that makes me," Hap said as he tightened his grip on my hips. I looked into his eyes, and everything that I was feeling in that moment I could see in his eyes. I wrapped my arms around his neck and leaned up and kissed him. He pulled me to him as close as he could get me. I could feel my desire for him rising in me. He reached down behind my TGHS and lifted me up, and I wrapped my legs around his waist. He pushed me against the shower wall and pulled his mouth away from mine. "I need you," I whispered to him as the water poured over us. "I'm right here. You will always have me," he said, pushing me further into the shower wall as he pushed into me. "Oh God, Hap," I moaned. I hadn't realized just how much I had needed to feel him inside of me. Hap leaned forward and rested his head on my shoulder. "God, babe, I can't tell you how much I have missed this. I have missed being able to be buried inside of you whenever I feel like it," Hap moaned as he started to thrust inside of me. There was something about being with Hap. Every time we had sex, his words managed to turn me on even more. Then there was the added bonus of killing Peep. Today that was just the icing on the cake. "Tell me, baby, tell me how much you enjoy it," I said, teasing him. He lifted his head up from my shoulder. The look in his eyes was indescribable. He playfully growled at me. "I would stay buried in you, 24 hours a day if I could." He growled. "Yeah, but if you did that, then you'd never have time for your other favorite things," I said, looking at him through my lust-filled eyes. "Oh yeah, and what's that?" he asked me. "Beer, whiskey, weed and killing. Ain't that right, Killa?" I said. He growled again. He thrust a few more times before he reached between us and furiously started rubbing my clit. I couldn't stop the moans that escaped my mouth. "You like that, princess?" he growled me. "Yes, I need more. I need more, Hap," I panted. Hap quickly turned us around and he dropped down to the shower floor. "Ride me, babe. Ride me hard," he growled out at me, never letting up on the pace that he had rubbing my clit. I started moving up and down, quickly finding my rhythm. I could feel my orgasm quickly building. With Hap's free hand, he reached up and took one of my nipples into his mouth. "God, Hap, I'm close," I said as I ground my hips into his harder than I think that I ever have. "Come on, baby, come with me," he said, releasing my nipple. As soon as the words fell from his mouth, I felt myself fall over the edge. I felt the intense orgasm rip through my body. "Hap," I screamed. "Bells." Hap screamed as he found his release at the same time. As I came down from my high, I felt my head fall forward and land on his shoulder. After a few minutes, I lifted my head up and gently kissed him. "God, I missed that," I said to him. He had the biggest grin on his face. He wrapped his arms around my back and held me close. "I love you so much," he said. I kissed his nose. "I love you too, Jack's Pa." When we made it back to the La Push clubhouse, Bella had disappeared immediately. I figured that she probably needed a minute after everything that had happened. I was pretty sure that since the moment she arrived in Charming, she hadn't given herself time to think about everything that had happened. As I sat at the bar drinking a beer, wondering what would happen next. I knew that Lex had suspected that Bells would be returning to Charming with us, but I wasn't completely sure if that was the case. I knew that Hap and Bells would figure everything out about what they would do. Part of me wanted my sister to come home, but the other part of me, the brother part, didn't want to see her and Hap all over each other during a club party. About half an hour later, I sensed that someone had sat down beside me. I turned to see Clay sit down. "I know what you're thinking," Clay said. "Oh yeah?" I asked. "Part of you is still upset that he inked her," he said, and I nodded. "I know the feeling. I can honestly tell you that I wasn't happy about it. The fact that they were seeing each other behind everyone's back. Secrets are good, especially within the club, but I also know your sister. She wouldn't do anything that would cause the club not to come first. It's in her blood just like it's in yours," Clay said. "How do I move past it?" Scared him looking down at the shot of whiskey in front of me. He sighed. "Think about how happy your sister looks when she's beside him," he said. I downed my shot before I looked back over at him. He nodded his head across the room. I turned to look. Bells and Hap had walked in, and there was something about the look on her face. She did look happy. She looked happier than I'd ever seen her. "She does look happy," I said. "That she does," he said. Bella paused. 3 days later, me and the rest of Samcro pulled into the lot at TM. As soon as I turned my car off, I looked up to see my mother running out of the office. I climbed out of my car just in time for her to pull me into a bone-crushing hug. "I'm okay, Mom," I said. "I know, I was just so worried. I hadn't heard from any of y'all other than Clay calling to say that y'all were headed home," she said, pulling back from me to look me over. "Well, we're here. We're safe. Everything is fine," I told her. "Good," she said with a big smile on her face. "Now we can officially have a welcome home party," she said. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Gemma tell her Mara would never change. And we wouldn't want her to. Bella paused. "It's been 5 years. 5 years since I left my old life. My old life of chasing bad guys and killing when necessary. After the welcome home party that Ma threw for me, I never looked back. Sure, I kept in touch with some of the girls. Leah and Jess were both still living in La Push. Bridget had moved to Tacoma to be with Kozik. The last I'd talked to her, Kozik was considering a transfer to Charming. After we got home, Jax had confided in me and Hap that he'd hooked up with Lex before the big battle. He told me that there was something about Lex that was making him crazy. He couldn't seem to get his mind off of her. He'd tried to reach out to Lex a couple of times during the first 6 months that we'd been home, but she'd ghosted him. 9 months after we'd returned home, Jax ran into his high school sweetheart, the one and only Tara Knowles. Apparently, she'd managed to flunk out of her fancy college that she'd gotten into. Now she was back in Charming working at the local diner. I couldn't help but feel karma had gotten her. Especially after the way that she'd left Jax. He'd started seeing her occasionally, but that stopped when he got a surprise visit from Lex, who'd brought a newborn with her. Jax's son. It shocked all of us. Especially Ma. After talking some, Jax and Lex had decided to give it a real go at being a family. That pissed Tara off, which of course made me and Ma happy. The just shocker for me though was 3 years ago. Hap and I had gone to the cabin for the weekend where he'd surprised me and proposed. He said that he knew that I was his for life, but he wanted the legality of it. I had been completely shocked. I didn't even hesitate. I said yes, immediately. But that wasn't the only shock. 3 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. When Ma found out, she Kaylee decided that our apartment wouldn't be big enough when the baby came. So she immediately set to finding Hap and I a house. Fortunately, she'd found one that Hap and I decided that we actually would have picked for ourselves. And there was enough room so that hopefully we could convince Hap's mom to come live with us. Her health wasn't doing too good and Hap was spending more time in Bakersfield than he was in Charming. Thankfully, Hap and I were able to convince her that she wouldn't be an inconvenience for her to move in with us, especially with a baby on the way. 2 months later, we moved into our house, and 6 months after that, I gave birth to one Carly Isabel Lohman. She was absolutely perfect. A year ago, Clay was shot. He survived, but the damage was already done to his body, acking it to where he couldn't ride his bike anymore. Jax was immediately voted in as president. The shocking thing was everyone assumed that Ope would be named as VP, however that's not what happened. Jax actually named Hap as his VP and Ope as his SAW. I think that was because of Ope's gift with Pyro. When they'd come out of church that day, you could physically the shift in power. Lex and I stew. Dean watched as my lovely mother glared at the two of us, realizing that she no longer had any control over the boys. She'd lost her power, and in turn Lex and I had gained it. So that's for today. Avenue added some of products in the comments section, to check out them too. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to drop your reviews in comments section.